Hello everyone, this is part 31 of What If Naruto's Mother Was Tsunade Senju, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Previously on Hope of the Senju clan. I'm sorry Tsunade, really am, said Jiraiya as he held the weeping woman to his chest, while he fought back his own tears. Seeing Naruto's still lifeless body hurt him more than any injury he had ever suffered in his entire life. It was a wound to the heart, one that would never heal. Seeing this, the two elder toad sages on Jiraiya's shoulder bowed their heads. I'm sorry Jiraiya-chan, I know how much he meant to you, said Pa. Poor tadpole, said Mara's look over sadly at Naruto, and closed her eyes in sorrow, since she could only imagine Tsunade grief, as parents should not outlive the children. Naruto, thought the Sandaime as he looked down at the boy, who was a grandson to him in all but blood, with a pained grief-stricken look. I'm sorry everything today is my fault, you should not have had to pay for my mistake. Sarutobi, I'm sorry, I know how much you cared for the boy, spoke Enma, as she tried to console his friend in his grief. Naruto Dono, thought the Katsuya clone sadly, who like the Sandaime blamed herself for what happened to the blonde boy. For if she had refused to bring Naruto here, he would probably still be alive now. After a minute or so, the Tsunade's grief-stricken cries could be heard throughout the stadium. NNNAAARRUUUTTTOOO. With Tsunade and the others. After the death of Naruto, the battle inside the barrier took a brief pause, where the only sound that could be heard was the sound of a weeping Tsunade, mourning the loss of her only child. Jiraiya did his best to console his heartbroken teammate as he held the weeping woman, while the Sandaime kneeled down next to Naruto and had him lay on his back. I'm sorry Naruto, it should have been me, not you, said the Sandaime sadly as he mourned the young boy, whose life was tragically cut short. Tisk, what a waste, Orochimaru thought with a frown when he looked at the now deceased boy. After a few minutes a cruel sneer appeared on the man's face. It seems that your necklace has once again claimed another victim. A shame though, he would have made an excellent vessel one day, but like all foolish children who dream of being Hokage he died needlessly. Hearing this, both Jiraiya and the Sandaime glared angrily at the man, who couldn't even leave them be to mourn the loss of someone dear to them, without saying something cruel. Even Tsunade stopped here crying when she heard Orochimaru's word. It really is a shame though, he had so much potential, but like little Nawaki, he was far too reckless and naive. In fact, like Nawaki, he probably thought he was invincible with the way he would rush off into danger without any regard. Kukukuku, it really is quite amusing. As Orochimaru continued to laugh, he was suddenly cut short by a powerful punch to the face from Tsunade, who appeared in front of him and shouted, "Sashute UUPP." The punch was so strong that it broke the former Sanin's nose and sent sprawling across the ground, before hitting a tree. Don't you ever insult my son or my brother like that again, yelled Tsunade angrily, whose face was still covered in dried tears and her eyes were puffy red from crying so hard. At the same time Jiraiya and Sarutobi, who looked angrier than Orochimaru had ever seen him, flanked Tsunade as they prepared to back the blonde-haired woman up. You be it shush, Orochimaru hissed angrily as he glared at the Senju mother and held his right sleeve up to his now broken nose. Kill them, Orochimaru ordered when he saw the Shodai and Nadaime Hokages appear next to him. No, said the Shodai Hokage suddenly, surprising everyone by his answer. What did you say? Orochimaru said in shock at the Shodai refusing his order. He said no, there has been enough fighting and death for today, answered the Nadaime Hokage. After which smoke suddenly began to emanate from their bodies and cracks started to appear on both his and the Shodai's faces, where they turned pale white and their bodies slowly began to crumble to dust. What's going on? I don't understand, this shouldn't be happening, said Orochimaru in dumb confusion. Although you have learned how to use the Edo Tensei, impure world reincarnation, you still do not understand it fully. Human emotions are not so easily restrained, and if a person is affected in an emotional way, such as seeing that boy sacrificing himself to save his mother and protect this village, then we are able to free our souls from the bindings of the jutsu and return to the afterlife, answered the Nadaime Hokage. Impossible, said Orochimaru, whose eyes widened in disbelief. You have done well as Hokage Sarutobi, said the Nadaime as he turned to his former student and smiled. The will of fire has clearly been passed on to the next generation, if that boy's actions are any indication. We can now rest easily knowing Konoha is in good hands. We caused you all a great deal of trouble and pain, said the Shodai sadly before looking to his granddaughter, whose eyes were still red from crying. Especially to you Tsunade, and for that I am sorry. I only wish our freedom did not come at the cost of your son. After bidding their farewells to the 3 Konoha shinobi, the 2 former Hokage's bodies crumpled into dust and their souls rose up into the air before disappearing. In the center of Konoha, after Naruto left to go after Gaara and his siblings, Kabuto was left to deal with the Senju heirs, girlfriends, who were proving to be quite troublesome for the bespectacled shinobi. At first Kabuto thought he could easily defeat the 3 girls, given their mutual dislike of one another, which would prevent them from working together. But to his surprise, the 3 girls somehow found common ground with one another and worked together to fight him. Furthermore, despite the fact they came from different villages and had never worked together with one another, the 3 girls proved to be an effective team, where Yugito would use her high speed and agility to fight Kabuto in close combat, with Mai assisting, who also supported with mid-range attacks. Haku remained behind the 2 girls giving long-range support, so to keep Kabuto on the defensive, along with medical aid in the event that Mai or Yugito were injured. In the earlier part of the fight Kabuto had tried maneuver around the 3 Kunoichi and chase after Naruto. But that soon proved impossible thanks to Haku, who used her Makyo Hyosho demonic mirroring ice crystals technique to create ice mirrors to block his path and force him back. As the fight continued, Kabuto became more irritated with the 3 girls, and how they were dealing him, since he had already wasted too much time with them. This is taking too long, I never anticipated these 3 to prove so troubling. If I was battling them individually, I could easily deal with them, but since they're working together, they're covering for each other weakness, Kabuto thought with a frown. Furthermore, they're only using delaying tactics, focusing on keeping me here instead of trying to defeat me. That make things even more difficult, since they know my real objective is to capture Naruto, and by not attacking they leave few openings for me to exploit. At the same time the 3 Kunoichi were all panting heavily, as Kabuto had proven to be an extremely difficult opponent, just as Naruto had said he would. Each of them had several small cuts on their arms and legs and were covered in sweat from battling so long. This is indeed troubling. Naruto-kun was not mistaken in how dangerous Kabuto-san is, he is easily at the level of a Jonin, Haku thought. Even Zabuza-sama would have difficulty fighting him. During the fight Haku had used the water from a nearby well to try and capture the Oto spy using her Makyo Hyosho to create a dome of ice mirrors around him. But before the dome could be complete, the grey-haired teen had jumped out of it, since he knew how dangerous it would be for him if he got caught inside it, after watching Haku's battle with Simui. Damn it, if only I could use Nibi's chakra, I could finish this guy off quickly, but Nibi is still out after Naruto suppressed her, Yugito thought angrily. Tisk, this guy is no pushover, I give him that, Mai said in annoyed tone. And that healing ability of his is really irritating. Agreed, also given how we haven't seen any sign of Sabaku no Gaara in his release Biju form. I believe it is safe to assume that Naruto-kun was able to reach him in time and stop him, which means we can stop our delaying tactics. Right, but to do that we will have to coordinate our attacks more and catch him off guard, replied Mai, who although didn't like the idea of having to work with the 2 girls, knew she had no other choice. And how exactly do we do that? Yugito asked, since they had already made several different coordinated attacks. But Kabuto evaded each and every one of their attacks. I have a plan, said Mai, with a small smirk, after which she began to tell the other 2 girls her plan. Seeing the 3 girls whispering amongst themselves, Kabuto frowned in concern, since he knew it was unwise to let the 3 girls converse amongst themselves. But before he could do anything, Mai took out several smoke bombs and threw them to the ground in front of her, creating a large cloud of smoke. She then swung her fan to create a large gust of wind that blew the smoke towards Kabuto, which enveloped them. Blinding by the smoke, Kabuto raised both his arms in a defensive measure and focused for any sounds. What are those 3 up to this time? Kabuto of course soon got his answer, when he received a sharp kick to the side. After which he spent the next minute or 2 struggling to defend himself from his adversaries, who were attacking him from multiple different directions. This isn't good, I'm at too much of a disadvantage like this, I need to get out of this smoke, Kabuto thought. Moments later Kabuto jumped out of the smoke, with Mai and Haku right behind him. Turning to meet the girls, Kabuto took out and threw a kunai at them, causing them to split up and attack the gray-haired shinobi from both sides at the same time. Seeing this, Kabuto activated his chakra scalpels again and ducked under attack at the last seconds and then hit them both in the heart with his chakra scalpels. But just when he thought he had killed the two Kunoiki, Haku, and Mai, exploded into water, soaking Kabuto, and revealing they had been water clones. At the same time, the smoke cloud finally dissipated, revealing that the three girls had not moved from their location. Once the smoke was gone, Haku preformed a single one-handed hand seal, which caused the water that covered Kabuto to freeze, preventing him from moving. What the? Kabuto thought when he saw what was happening. But before he could act, he saw Haku unleash a large hail of senbon needles. At the same time Yugito spat out a large stream of fire, which covered the needles, while Mai swung his fan to create a large gust of wind which increased not only the needle's speed but enhanced the fire around the needles. Seeing the attack, Kabuto could watch in horror as the flaming needles impaled his body, which shortly burst into flames. Hey, gotcha, said Mai with a triumphant smirk. HMF not bad for an nin, commented Yugito, since she had to give the brown-haired girls credit, since her plan worked perfectly. That was an excellent plan, Mai-san, I must admit said Haku before she saw Kabuto's burnt corpse turn to mud and felt something grab her legs. When she and the others looked down, they saw a pair of glowing hands that had sprung out of the ground and were holding the ice user's leg. What the? Said Mai when she saw the hands, but before she or Yugito could act, the hands let go of Haku's legs, causing the girl to fall to the ground, as the tendons to her feet had been cut. Moments after the hands retreated into the ground, Kabuto sprung out of the ground behind the two girls, who quickly spun around to meet him. But before they could attack, Kabuto kicked Yugito away, sending the Kumo Kaneki flying back a few meters. After which he then sidestepped a left punch from Mai and then placed one of his glowing hands on the girl's chest, right above her heart, causing her to spit out blood and fall to the ground, clenching her chest in pain. Hey, I missed, thought Kabuto with a small smirk, since his intention had been to hit the girl right in the heart with his chakra scalpel. But because of her sudden movement, he had narrowly missed the spot he had been aiming for and instead hit a vein which temporarily disrupted the blood flow to her heart. After dealing with Mai, Kabuto then turned to Yugito, who was speeding towards him with her claw-like nails. Wasting no time, Kabuto skillfully evaded the blonde girl's slashes and then broke the girl's long claws with his chakra scalpels. After which he then placed the palm of his glowing hand on the girl's upper chest, disrupting her breath and causing her to buckle, allowing him sever the tendo on her right arm and both her legs, causing her to fall. Seeing that he had finally disabled the three girls, a small triumphant smirk appeared on his face as he fixed his glasses up. Well now, I must admit that was challenging, you three put up an impressive fight. I also must compliment you all on that perfectly executed combo you preformed at the end. Had I not created a clone of myself in the smoke earlier on, and used it to distract the three of you, I'm certain that you would have gotten me with that attack. Bastard, growled Mai angrily as she held her chest in pain. Now there is no need for language like that, Mai-chan, Kabuto said in a mocking tone as he smirked down at the girl. Sadly, I'm afraid I cannot let any of you live, for if I did, given your already impressive skill level, you would no doubt continue to improve and could cause Orochimaru-sama and myself a great deal of trouble later on. Given how you have already caused me to fail in my mission in preventing Naruto-kun from reaching Gaara. But just after he said this, a sudden idea hit him, causing a cold, cruel smirk to appear on his face, and causing the three girls to worry. Perhaps I will let one of you live, since I could use one of you as a hostage, when I go to capture Naruto-kun. Knowing him, he would risk almost anything to save his friends. The question is which one of you I will use? Asked the young medic, as he looked at three young girls, who just stared back at him angrily and made sure not to show any fear. But before Kabuto could come to a decision on whom he would spare and use as a hostage to capture Naruto, the gray-haired youth was suddenly forced to jump away when he caught sight of an object speeding towards him out of the corner of his eyes. Acting fast, Kabuto quickly jumped back to avoid the objective, which cut his right cheek as he moved away and then embedded itself into a nearby stone wall. When Kabuto took a closer look of the object, he saw that it was a short sword that had been covered in lightning chakra, increasing its cutting power and allowing it to embed itself into the stone wall. That was too close, Kabuto thought with a cold sweat, since if he had been a moment slower, the sword would have gone right through his head. At that moment though, Kabuto noticed a person standing between him and the three young Kunoichi. This person was none other than Kumo's Hachibi no Jinchuriki, Eight Tails Jinchuriki Killer Bee. Sensei, said Yugito in surprise. Not so fast you motherfucker fool. Picking on kids ain't never spoke the rapping Jinchuriki as he drew two more short swords from his back and covered them in lightning chakra. More trouble, Kabuto thought in annoyance when he recognized Killer Bee. Damn it, I don't stand a chance against someone like him, especially since I'm nearing the end of my chakra. There's no other choice, I'll have to retreat. Sensei, you need to be careful, this guy is a medic nin and is dangerous. That fine with me, I won't lose you see, answered the dark-skinned man, before he and the girl saw Kabuto make a run for it. He's trying to escape, cried Haku. I'm on him like white on ripe rice, said Killer Bee as he chased after Kabuto. But before either shinobi could get very far, they suddenly stopped when they saw the Shoshinjin, Four Violet Flames battle encampment fall. Shortly after the barrier fell, they saw half of the stadium rooftop be destroyed in a massive explosion. Orochimaru-sama, thought Kabuto with a mixture of surprise and concern, before realizing he needed to get to his master. My apologizes B-sama, but I'm afraid I must take my leave, let us meet again at another time, said Kabuto with an arrogant smirk before he started preforming hand seals. Hold it you, said Killer Bee as he took a step forward, but by then it was too late, as Kabuto had already disappeared in a puff of smoke. Damn motherfucker, he turned and hauled ass, muttered the sunglass-wearing shinobi. Forget him B, you better get back to those three girls and make sure they're okay, after that we need to see what's happening at the stadium, as I have a bad feeling about it, the Hachibi said. Right, replied B before he took off. At the same time not far from where Mai, Haku and Yugito were battling Kabuto. Baki was busy fending for himself from the combined efforts of Yamato and Momoki Zabuza, the Kirigakure no Kijin demon of the hidden mist. In the beginning of the battle, it was just Yamato and him, where the Mokuton user proved to be a difficult opponent to go up against thanks to his bloodline limit. But the tide soon turned completely against him when Zabuza joined the fray after he and Killer Bee had defeated all of Baki's men, including a platoon of Oto Nin who joined the fight shortly afterwards. After dodging several wooden spikes that erupted from the ground, Baki barely managed to avoid a lethal slash from Zabuza's large sword, when the demon of the hidden mist appeared next him. Damn it, this is getting out of hand, thought Baki angrily, as he held his now bleeding shoulder and saw the bodies of his dead men, who had been killed by Killer Bee and Zabuza without too much difficulty. It was only through a stroke of good luck that Killer Bee had gone after Kabuto and the girls, since if he had stayed with Yamato and Zabuza, the Tsunade knew, he would probably be dead by now. Knowing he needed to make a retreat, Baki tried to think of a way to escape, but just when his two opponents were about to attack, their attention was suddenly turned into the direction of the stadium where they saw the Shoshinjin fall. Shortly after that they saw half of the stadium rooftop be destroyed in a massive explosion. What the hell? Said Zabuza said when he saw the explosion. Hokage-sama, Tsunade-sama, Jiraiya-sama, thought a concerned Yamato. Seeing this as his only chance to escape, Baki formed three quick hand seals and lifted up both his hands and yelled, Futon, Kiru Ranbu, Wind Style, Air Current Wild Dance. After Baki yelled this, a large blast of wind erupted from his hands, creating a large dust storm that blanketed the arena, blinding both Yamato and Zabuza. Shit, thought Zabuza as he and Yamato were forced to raise their arms to shield their eyes from the dust. Once the dust had settled and the two could see, they saw that Baki had disappeared. Tisk, he ran off, we were careless, Zabuza remarked with a hint of annoyance over how he allowed himself to be distracted and let Baki get away. That no longer matters, we needed to get back to the stadium, the Hokage-sama and the other may be in danger, said Yamato before taking off with Zabuza following closely behind. In another part of Konoha, Kushina and Katsuya were just wrapping up the battle with the giant snakes, where Kushina had used her chakra chains to retrain the large reptile, allowing Katsuya to finish the creature off with her Zeshi Nensen tongue-tooth sticky acid. But before the Slug Queen could fire her attack, she suddenly stopped and froze when she received some news from her small clone. Katsuya, what's wrong? Finish the thing off, yelled Kushina as she struggled to hold the massive snake. It's Naruto Dono, said the Slug Queen. Naruto. Did something happen to him? He is dead, the stunned female slug said. Dead? Cried Kushina in shock. Seeing that both Katsuya and Kushina were distracted, the large snake summon quickly broke free of its binds and burrowed into the ground before either Kushina or Katsuya could do anything to stop it. Shortly after the snake escape, the two females, who were still reeling from the shock that Naruto was dead, saw the Shishinshin fall. After which they saw half of the stadium rooftop be destroyed in a massive explosion. Damn it, cursed Kushina after seeing the explosion. Come on Katsuya, let's go, we need to get the stadium now. Yes of course, replied the Slug Queen, and she quickly made her way over the stadium. Inside the barrier, after seeing the former Hokage return to the afterlife, Orochimaru just stared at their ashes, still not understanding what had happened. This can't be happening, thought the Snake Sennin, my plan was perfect. At the same time some of the dust on the two piles fell, showing the dead bodies of Chuchikin and Abumizaku and revealing what Orochimaru had done. He used his own subordinates as sacrifices to summon the Shodai and Nadaime Hokage Samus, Jiraiya thought with a frown. Orochimaru, is there no end to your atrocities? The Sandaime thought angrily after glancing over at the two dead genin before glaring at his former student. With the Shodai and Nadaime Hokages gone and his hands now worthless from Tsunade's poison, Orochimaru realized that any chance of victory had faded. Saken. The mission has failed, release the barrier, we're retreating. Hi, replied the four shinobi before preforming the same hand seal and shouting Kai, causing the barrier to disperse. Once the barrier had been dispelled, Orochimaru, personal guard, quickly jumped over to their master where Saken and Jirobo took his arms. But before they could move, Tsunade suddenly shouted, don't you dare move an inch. At that moment the Otogaku no Shinobi Yonenshu, hidden sound shinobi, four people, felt a wave of killing intent stronger than any they had ever felt before in their lives, coming from Tsunade. The killing intent was so strong that it froze the four shinobi in their place and made them feel as if their hearts had just been ripped out of the chests. When the four shinobi and their master turned to the Senju matriarch, they saw that she had her head lowered, where her hair covered her face slightly. Enter Naruto OST anger. After a moment or two Tsunade suddenly spoke, Orochimaru, because of you I have lost the most precious thing in the world to me. The one good thing I did right with my life, the one thing that gave my life any meaning. Because of you, my son is dead, shouted the woman as she glared at the man responsible for her child's death, where tears once again fell from her eyes and she wiped Naruto's blood from her cheek. At the same time, the others also noticed that the diamond mark on her forehead had opened up into a seal that extended down throughout her entire body. Tsunade, don't tell me, Jiraiya thought when he saw the markings on his teammate's face and realized that she had activated her Byakugo no Jutsu, strength of 100 technique, which was the more advanced version of her Sozo Saisei creation rebirth. This I swear on Naruto's blood, I will kill you with my bare hands, roared the grief-stricken Tsunade. She then slammed her fist onto the tiled roof and destroyed half of the stadium rooftop with a single punch, along with all the trees on it, and blasted Jiraiya all the others away. After destroying half of the stadium rooftop, Tsunade looked up and saw Orochimaru and his guard flying in midair, where they had jumped into the air to avoid Tsunade's explosive attack. Shit. That fucking old hag has lost it, cried Tayuya as she shielded her face from the force of the blast. Move. None of you stand a chance against her, not when she is like this, yelled Orochimaru, who knew that there would be no stopping Tsunade now. Quickly Orochimaru and his guard fell down into the street below to make their escape. You're nothing getting away, yelled Tsunade before she jumped after them. Tsunade, wait, cried Jiraiya, but it was too late as the blonde-haired woman had already jumped after Orochimaru and his guard. Jiraiya, we needed to go after her and help, spoke the Sandaime who was holding Naruto's body, after they had been blown away by the force of Tsunade punch. Right, nodded Jiraiya, but before he could leave, Anbu Commander and his team arrived, who like Jiraiya and the Sandaime had been blown back by the force of Tsunade punch. Hokage-sama, are you alright? Yes, I'm fine, replied Sarutobi as he laid Naruto down of the rooftop. You've done more than enough today, my boy. Hokage-sama, is he? Asked the Anbu commander as he took the blonde boy from the old cage. Yes, replied the Sandaime regretful, where he closed his eyes in sorrow again. I understand, replied the commander before he and his men took off after Tsunade with Jiraiya and the Sandaime. With Tsunade. After jumping down into the street below, Tsunade continued in her pursuit after Orochimaru, where she quickly closed the distance between them, as she moved with phenomenal speed. As she moved through the streets, every time her feet touched the ground, she would create a small crater in the ground, indicating her unbridled fury. Shit, the bitch is catching up with us, cried Tayuya. I'll hold her off, said Jirobo as he activated the first level of his curse seal and created a massive earth wall in front of him to halt her advance. Not slowly down even for a second, Tsunade used her enhanced strength to punch right through the massive earth wall, and at the same time send Jirobo, who was standing behind the earth wall, flying across the street and crashing to a nearby building. That useless fat fuck, he didn't even slow her down for a second, shouted Tayuya angrily. Let me deal with her, said Kidomaru, who quickly activated the first level of his curse seal. After which he formed a single-hand seal and spat out several globs of sticking web at Tsunade, hoping to halt or at least slow down the female Sannin's advance. Within seconds of seeing the white sticky globs, Tsunade quickly formed the necessary hand seals for chakra scalpels and used them to cut through the globs. Seeing this, Kidomaru moved back in attempt to keep his distance from her and continued to fire move globs of sticky web, hoping to keep the vengeful Senju mother at bay. But Tsunade dodged or cut through each and every one of his attacks and within seconds was right on top of him and hit him with a supercharged kick to the side, sending the Oto Nin crashing through a stone wall. Those useless shitheads, now Kidomaru's out, yelled Tayuya as she turned and saw Tsunade close in on them. Tayuya, take Orochimaru-sama, I'll handle her, said Sakin where he turned around and raced towards Tsunade. Akon, I'm going to need your help brother, said Sakin as she glanced back at his other head. Right, spoke the Akon, who then separate himself from his brother. Once they were separate, the two brothers then activated their curse seal and attacked Tsunade together, who easily ducked under their two punches and grabbed both their face in her hands and slammed them both head first into the ground, causing small craters in the ground. After dealing with Sakin and Akon, the vengeful Tsunade closed in on Orochimaru and Tayuya. But before she could attack, the last giant snake erupted out from the ground in front of her and blocked her path. Get out of my way, roared Tsunade, as she gathered a huge amount of chakra into her right fist and slammed it into the massive snake's face. The force of the blow was so powerful that it caused the snake to explode and cover the surrounding area with the snake's blood or guts, which disappeared shortly after in a puff of smoke. Fuck. Can't anyone stop that bitch? Tayuya yelled before stopping. Orochimaru-sama, please go on ahead, I take care of this bitch. After biting her thumb, Tayuya quickly performed a few quick hand seals and yelled, Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning technique. After preforming the summoning technique, a large cloud of smoke appeared around her, where once it dissipated, it revealed three massive orges behind her. The first wore a dark green full-body suit with its hair covers its entire head and face and wielded a giant studded metal club. The second was shirtless, which showed its muscular physique. It wore dark pants and had scars on its head and wore a blindfold, covering its eyes and thorn-like weapons tied to each arm. The third and final orge had its upper body covered in bandages and didn't seem to have arms or wielded any weapons. It wore brown pants and held its head in an awkward position with several needles pinned on it. Once she had summoned the creatures, Tayuya took out her flute from her pouch and activated the first level of her curse seal and used her flute to order them to attack. Unconcerned by the three creatures, the vengeful Tsunade continued to race forward, jumped into the air and performed a perfect falling axe kick down on the bandage-covered orge's head, creating a massive crater, which the creature was now lying in. After dealing the first orge, Tsunade turned to the other two, where one used its massive club to try and crush the female Sannin with one blow. But instead Tsunade caught the club with her one hand and grabbed hold of it and swung the orge around into the third orge, sending the two creatures crashing to a large nearby building. Seeing Tsunade easily defeat her summons, Tayuya raced forward with her left fist raised and yelled, "You fucking cow." But before her fist could even reach the elder woman, Tsunade backhanded the girl, like she was a fly and sent tumbling across the ground several meters away. Once Tayuya and her summons were defeat, Tsunade then took off after Orochimaru, where within minutes caught up to her former friend, right when he was nearing the outer wall. Using her monstrous strength, Tsunade destroyed the ground underneath Orochimaru's feet, along with several nearby buildings, forcing the former Sannin to jump into the air. making him an easy target for Tsunade, who jumped into the air and kicked the heavy Sennin back and sending him hurtling into the outer wall when he made a massive dent in the wall. Not the least bit finished the man Tsunade chased after him, with the intent of smashing the man until he was nothing more than a bloody stain on the ground. Disorientated over what happened, Orochimaru struggled to get back onto his feet, where he Tsunade speeding towards him with fist raised. With no time to waste, Orochimaru spat out his long tongue at Tsunade in the hope of capturing her with it again. But this time the female Sannin was ready for him, and she sidestepped the long tongue and grabbed hold of it and pulled the fallen Sannin towards her while yelling, "You're dead." After she then punched the man right in the face with a supercharged punch to the face, sending flying back into the outer wall. But before he could hit it, Tsunade grabbed hold of his tongue again and pulled him back towards her. After which she unleashed a series of powerful punches on his entire body, causing massive damage to the man, before finally kicking into the stone wall of a nearby building. End Naruto OST Anger. Wah! Cried Orochimaru after he smashed into the wall. After taking so many tremendous and powerful hits, a normal shinobi would have been dead. But Orochimaru was no ordinary shinobi. Thanks to all the experiments he had done to himself over the years, he was able to survive, but it was not without cost, where the man was left in agonizing pain. There wasn't a single part of his body that wasn't screaming in pain, where he was suffering from multiple internal injuries, with most of his bones broken and his arms and legs twisted and turned in unnatural angles. Seeing the state he was in, Orochimaru opened his mouth into an inhuman width, after which a new undamaged version of himself emerged from it. But to his anger he saw that his shedding technique had not healed him of Tsunade poison, in fact it only accelerated the poison's effects. His arms were now gray, and felt like they were on fire, while the veins on his arms were blood red, making them visible, and the wounds on his hands were a sickly yellow, making them look infected. Curses, what sort of poison did Tsunade use on me? Orochimaru thought angrily, but before he could think on the matter further he saw his former female teammate racing towards him. Knowing he was no match for her in his current state, Orochimaru tried to run away, but Tsunade quickly caught up to him and flipped over him, blocking his path. She then kicked him in the chest before he could move away and followed up with several other strong punches and kicks. Trying his best to avoid any further damage, Orochimaru spat out his tongue again, which turned into a snake that spat out a long blade that pierced Tsunade's chest. Thinking he had gotten Tsunade, the former Sannin smirked in triumph. But it was short-lived, where it turned shock when he watched Tsunade pull the blade out of her chest and the wound healed almost instantly. Impossible. What sort of justu is she using, thought the wide-eyed Orochimaru, before pulled on the snake tongue and pulled him over to her. This Orochimaru is you clavicle. She clenched her hand around the snake Sennin's collarbone. It is believed by many people to be one of the easiest bones to break in the human body. With a sadistic smile plastered on her face, and a small amount of her famed strength, Tsunade snapped her former friend's clavicle, causing Orochimaru make a cross between a snarl and a cry in pain. But before he could recover he was yanked by the collar of his shirt again and sent into the air. She then channeled an enormous amount of chakra into her leg and kicked the heavy Sennin right in the face. The force of the kick was so great, it sent Orochimaru flying through the air and back into the outer wall, making a gigantic dent in the wall and nearly brought down the entire section of the wall down on top of the former Sannin. After Orochimaru hit the wall, the paled-faced man struggled to get back onto his feet, as he could barely move his body after the hit he took, which also nearly blew his head clear off his body. Not to mention he could no longer move his hands or arms, which felt like fire was coursing through his veins. Before Orochimaru could even try to stand up, he saw a large shadow hovered over him. When he looked up he saw Tsunade standing over him with a look pure hatred and anger in her eyes, where she lifted her fist up and channeled another enormous amount of chakra into it. "This is for Naruto," Tsunade said coldly. Seeing the chakra covering her fist, a look of fear appeared on Orochimaru's face, knowing that Tsunade had channeled enough power to her fist to kill him with one punch. But before Tsunade could deliver the fatal blow, a figure suddenly jumped up in between the two of them and kicked the female Sannin away. Skidding across the ground, Tsunade ignored the pain coming from her stomach after the kick and looked up towards Orochimaru and the person that had saved him. "Excellent timing, Kabuto-kun," spoke Orochimaru in a painful voice, as Kabuto slowly helped him up. Upon seeing Orochimaru's weakened state, the gray-haired teen was naturally concerned for his master. This is not good. Orochimaru-sama is badly injured, and I can't take him away from here with Tsunade-sama in front of us, who will no doubt attack us the moment I try to move. At that moment unexpected assistance arrived in the form of the Otogaku no Shinobi Yon and Shu, who had all somehow recovered enough from their fights with Tsunade to come and help, although most of them still looked to be badly injured. Accompany the sound four were also with Tayuya's 3 Orge summons, who looked no worse for wear. But just when things were looking unfavorable for Tsunade, the tables quickly turned again with the arrival of Jiraiya and the Sandaime, who were also accompanied by the Godaime Mizukage, the Yondaime Reikage, their respect bodyguards Darui and Ao, along with Kakashi, Zabuza, Killer Bee, Guy, Yamato, Asuma, Anko, Shizune, Kurenai, the 3 Anbu and Kushina, who had also brought along the Slug Queen Katsuya. As the two sides faced each other, Sun's group quickly chose their opponents. Orochimaru against Tsunade, Kabuto against the Godaime Mizukage Mei, Shizune and Kushina, Jirobo against the Sandaime Hokage, Asuma and Guy, Tayuya against Anko, Kurenai Yamato, Tayuya's 3 ogres against the Yondaime Reikage A, Killer Bee and Jiraiya, who was still in his sage mode, Kidomaru against Ao and the 3 Anbu, Sakan against Kakashi, Zabuza and Darui. After seeing who they were up against, Orochimaru of course had no delusion of what would happen. Given the number of enemies they were up against and who their enemies were, his side stood no chance of winning. They couldn't even last long enough to buy him time to escape, since not only were they facing his former teammates and sensei, along with several notable shinobi, they were also up against the Reikage and the Mizukage, which of course baffled the former Sannin, since he had been certain that the 2 cages and their people would leave Konoha to fend for itself, once the battle started. The situation was made even more difficult with the arrival of Tsunade's summons Katsuya, who easily wipe out him and his forces out with one blast of her acid. Knowing he needed to do something, Orochimaru quickly signaled Kabuto over to him. Realizing what his master was planning, Kabuto quickly bit his finger and moved over to Orochimaru and lifted his left sleeve to reveal his summoning tattoo. After which Kabuto then quickly rubbed his blood onto the tattoo and preformed the necessary hand seals. Seeing what they were up top, Tsunade, Kushina, Shizune and the Mizukage moved in to stop him. But by the time they reached them, Kabuto finished his handset and slammed it onto the ground while yelling Kuchio's no Jutsu. After Kabuto finished, the Tsunade and the others were all forced to jump back onto the rooftops of some nearby buildings, where they then saw a massive 2-headed snake appear. Katsuya quickly, shouted Tsunade. At once Tsunade-sama, replied Katsuya before spitting a large blast of acid, which hit the large summons before it had a chance to attack and caused it to melt before puffing away. Once the smoke from the giant snake returning to its home died down, Tsunade and the others quickly scanned the field for any sign of Orochimaru and his people. Where are they? Tsunade yelled furious as she jumped back to where they last saw Orochimaru and scanned the arena for any sign of them. How can you sense them? The Mizukage asked as she turned to her guard. Closing his eye, the head of Kiri's Hunter Nin division closed his eyes and tried to sense for the Oto shinobi. After a minute or so, Ao opened his eyes and shook his head. I'm sorry, I can't. Somehow they're cloaking their chakra signatures and preventing me from finding them. No, shouted Tsunade angrily as she prepared to try and follow after Orochimaru. I won't let him get away, not after what he did. Before the Tsunade he even take a step away, someone suddenly grabbed her hand and stopped her in her tracks and said, "That's enough, Tsunade." When she turned, she saw that the person who stopped her was Jiraiya, who had an unusually serious long on his face. If you don't want to lose that arm, Jiraiya, you'll let go of me this instant. Tsunade spat angrily. No, replied Jiraiya, who for once showed no fear in the face of Tsunade's anger. What? I said, no, enough for one day, there's no point in going after them, you'll never catch up to them in time. Besides, can't you see your body is at its limit, you're running on pure adrenaline right now. Even if you find them, you won't be in any shape to fight all of them, you'll just get yourself killed in the attempt. I don't care, as long I take him with me. Stop talking like that, Tsunade, yelled Jiraiya, which surprised most people, since this was the first time any of them had ever heard Jiraiya raise his voice to Tsunade. The kid would never want you to talk like that. Don't dare bring up Naruto's name into this, shouted Tsunade. Then stop acting so selfish, rounded Jiraiya angrily. Don't think for one second that you're the only one hurting here. I love that kid as if he was my own flesh and blood, but acting like this changes nothing. Do you really want to throw away your life like this, even after he gave up his own to save it? After Jiraiya said this, most of the gathered shinobi were left in shock when they heard that Naruto was dead. But before any of them could recover, Jiraiya spoke again. Tsunade, I promise you, we'll find Orochimaru, and when we do, we'll make him pay for what he did, but not today. Jiraiya's right, Tsunade, spoke the Sandaime calmly, as he tried to ease Tsunade's anger. There has been enough fighting for today, now is not a time for vengeance, it's a time for mourning. Seeing that both Jiraiya and the Sandaime were against, Tsunade just gashed her teeth in anger. Before pulling her arm from Jiraiya's grip and then letting out an angry roar of frustration as she slammed her fist into the outer wall, blowing apart the entire section of the wall, creating massive gap in the wall, 20 meters wide. When Tsunade destroyed the walls, the surrounding shinobi shielded their faces from the shockwave created by the wall's destruction. They then watched as the debris from the wall fly through the air and scattered across the surrounding forest, destroying several trees as they landed. Incredible, her strength is at a completely different level from mine, thought the Raikage as he shielded his face from the shockwave. Whoa, scary, thought Killer Bee. What freighting power, thought the Mizukage in slight awe of Tsunade's strength. I wouldn't want her as an enemy, Zabuza thought to himself after seeing what Tsunade had done. After she destroyed the wall, Tsunade let out another angry cry before yelling, I'll find you Orochimaru. It doesn't matter how far you run or where you hide. I'll find you. After screaming out her frustration and anger, Tsunade finally fell to her knees, and broke down into tears again. Separating themselves from Jiraiya, the two elder toad sages jumped off Jiraiya's shoulders, allowing him to go over and comfort the weeping woman. At first, Tsunade resisted Jiraiya's attempts, as she kept pushing him away. But eventually her resistance lessened and she finally allowed him to hold her as she wept into his chest. As Tsunade wept, the surrounding around remained silent as they watched the heartbroken woman cry. Many were even silently mourning the loss of Naruto, who died far too soon. Eventually though, Jiraiya lifted Tsunade back onto her feet, where they and the rest of the group made their way back to the stadium. In the Kyuubi's cell. Sitting in his cell, the Kyuubi could see the world around him slowly collapsing, growing darker and darker. It's getting darker, and my strength is waning, don't tell me, said the Kyuubi, who realized what was happening. That worthless human. I told him not to get himself killed. Growling in anger, the Kyuubi could feel himself growing weaker and weaker by the minute. No, I won't let this worthless brat be the end of me. I refuse to die, roared the giant fox as he used all its remaining strength to force his chakra into Naruto's body. Within seconds, the Kyuubi's chakra flooded Naruto's body and started to heal Naruto's remaining wounds at an accelerated rate. Once Naruto's wounds were healed, the Kyuubi then focused his remaining chakra into Naruto's heart and used it all to try and start it up. After a minute or two, the Kyuubi suddenly heard a thump. Shortly after, it was followed by another thump, and then another. Eventually the Kyuubi could hear a slow, steady beat coming from Naruto's heart. It was weak, but it was steady, and she could see his world slowly beginning to reform. Tisk, damn brat, nearly getting us both killed, all for that worthless mother of his, grumbled the fox tiredly as he had used up most of his remaining strength to heal Naruto's wounds and start his heart up again. But even with this, the Kyuubi knew that Naruto wasn't out of the woods yet, and need medical attention, and soon, since he had lost a lot of blood. I've done all I can now for you, brat, it's up to you now to stay alive, said the Kyuubi out loud before closing his eyes to sleep and regain his strength. With Naruto. Where am I? Naruto said to himself. A minute ago he was looking up at his mother, who was desperately trying to heal him after Orochimaru's sword stabbed him, and the next he found himself walking in a dark void-like place. After walking for what seemed like hours, Naruto saw a small light ahead and walked towards it. Eventually Naruto saw that the light was from a small campfire which was burning brightly. As he got closer, he saw a man sitting in front of the fire, who turned to look at him when he heard Naruto walking towards him. Hello young man, would you like to come closer and warm yourself? There is more than enough to share, the man asked kindly. Yay thanks, said Naruto, who was unsure about the whole situation and sat down on a log in front of the fire, facing the man, who staring intently at the large fire. As Naruto stared at the man, he could help but seem strangely familiar to the blonde. He had a kind face and long silver-colored hair that hung over his forehead protector, which had the symbol of Konoha on it. He had dark eyes along with deep lines underneath them, giving him a tired look. He wore a standard Konoha nin uniform complete with a pair of gloves, flak jacket, bandages on his right arm, and the addition of distinctive short white sleeve which had red edges. He also carried a holster that he wore diagonally over his right shoulder, which seemed to hold a strange tanto sword. You are aware that it is rude to stare, the man said with looking up from the fire. Sorry, Naruto said as blushed from embarrassment. You seem kind of familiar to me. Do I? Well, I guess that makes two of us, since you two seem familiar in some way, said the man with a kind smile. Would it be alright if I ask you something? You may. Am I dead? Raising his left eyebrow in amusement, the man smiled again and said, Yes, I suppose you are dead. Then what is this place? It doesn't really seem much like heaven. Wait. Hold on a second, don't tell me I ended up in the other place. Naruto yelled and started to panic, and looked around for any small red devils with pitchforks, who would come out to torture him. Seeing the panic look on the blonde's face, the man laughed heartily. You need not worry, young man, you're not there, but as you said, you're not heaven either. Relieved that he wasn't in the other place, Naruto began to calm down. So if I'm not in heaven or there, then where am I? That is a good question. I suppose you can call this a space in between worlds. A sort of halfway point between the world of the living and the next world, allowing a place for those who are not yet ready to move on to exist, and those who are on the verge of death but have not yet passed. After hearing the man's explanation, Naruto nodded, since it did make some sense. So I guess I'm here because I'm not ready to move yet. Naruto said, since he remembered the pain of being stabbed through the heart by Orochimaru's blade. Perhaps, the man replied with shrug, since he was unsure. Is that the same for you? Yes, although I'm also waiting for something. Waiting for what? I'm afraid I don't have the faintest clue, the man said with a slight chuckle, as if laughing at his own ignorance. All I know is that I'm not ready to move on and I need to wait. It must be lonely having to wait here by yourself. It does at times, but from time to time I meet someone such as yourself who is not ready to move on either. How long have you been waiting here? Time has little meaning here, the man replied. Hours or days could pass here, while only seconds or years could pass in the living world. After hearing this, Naruto just stared into the fire, since he still wasn't sure how to make all of this. It seems that I have forgotten my manners as I have yet to introduce myself, the man said with another kind smile before he stood up and offered his hand. My name is Hitaki Tsukumo, it's very nice to meet you. Oh yay, sorry, my name is, said Naruto with an embarrassed smile, as he took the man's hand, but as soon as he did, his eyes widened in shock when the man's name sunk in. Hitaki SS Tsukumo. I believe that is my name, said Tsukumo, who was still smiling. Still in shock at who he was talking to, Naruto let go of the man's hand and took a step back, causing him to inadvertently trip over the log he had been sitting on and fall onto his back. Before Tsukumo could even ask if the Naruto was alright, the blonde quickly stood with his eyes opened wide and his right finger pointed at Tsukumo. Why you're Hitaki Tsukumo, as in Konoha no Shiroi Kiba, Konoha's white fang. Ah, yes, that is me, Tsukumo replied, looking slightly embarrassed, since he was a rather humble man, who didn't really like fame. I suppose given your reaction that you have heard of me then. Heard of you? Naruto said in disbelief, you're like a legend in Konoha. This was of course true. When growing up, Jiraiya and Tsunade had often told Naruto stories, not only about theirs and his father's adventures, but also of other well-known and revered shinobi like Hitaki Tsukumo, whose fame and reputation was known and revered throughout the shinobi world. According to Jiraiya, Tsukumo was hailed as a genius shinobi without equal in his time, and was praised for his talents in the shinobi arts, even by Naruto's father Minato. It was said that the man's prowess on the battlefield was so great, it surpassed all three members of the Sannin, and that the very idea of facing Tsukumo brought fear into the hearts of his enemies. No wonder he looked so familiar. He's Kakashi Sensei's father, Naruto thought, where he could clearly see the strong resemblance between the two. After a few minutes, Naruto eventually settled down and got over his shock at meeting the legendary shinobi. Well, now that he have calmed down, perhaps you can tell your name, said Tsukumo, where he and Naruto sat back down. Yeah, right, my name is Senju Naruto. After Naruto introduced himself, it was Tsukumo's turn to be surprised. Senju, you say? Then you must be related to Tsunade-sama. Tsukumo said, since she only living Senju he knew of when he was alive. Yeah, she's my mother, replied Naruto, surprising the silver-haired shinobi once again. Your mother? Well, that is very interesting, said the amused Tsukumo. Yeah, she told me stories about you, where she said you were an amazing shinobi. My previous godfather Jiraiya even told me once that if you had lived longer you probably would have become the Yondaime Hokage instead of my father. Your father? Yeah, Namikaze Minato. Surprised again by this news of who Naruto's father was, the former shinobi of Konoha smiled down at the boy. Ah yes, now I see it. I knew of your father, he was a powerful and talented shinobi, you look just like him, I can understand why the Sandaime Hokage-sama choose him to succeed him. After a minute or two of silence Tsukumo suddenly spoke again, by chance would you know of my son Kakashi? He was a student of your father. Yay, I do, he's actually one of my senseis. Is he well? Yeah, he is, in fact he's one of Konoha's strongest shinobi and is famed throughout the shinobi world, just like you. I see, thank you Naruto-san, it eases me to know that my son is alive and doing well, said Tsukumo with a small smile. My Ka-chan also told me what happened to you, I don't think it was right how everyone treated you back then, if I had been in your shoes I would have done the exact same thing. You're very kind Naruto-san. You should know that most shinobi hold you in high regard, and believe you we right in what you did. In fact Kakashi-sensei once told me that those who break the rules are trash, but those who abandon their friends and comrades are worse than trash. This of course made the man smile again, where he seemed happier than he did before Naruto met him. The two continued to talk like this for what seemed like hours, sharing different stories with each other. When Naruto told Tsukumo about how he could perform Mokuton, the former Konoha nin was shocked, more so when he heard about how Naruto had defeated 2 Jinchuriki all on the same day single-handedly. After getting over his shock the former White Fang of Konoha smiled at the blonde. You're a very extraordinary young man Naruto-san. I could not agree more, spoke a new voice suddenly from the darkness, which sounded familiar to Naruto. Hearing the new voice Tsukumo and Naruto quickly turned in the direction of where the voice came from. After turning the two shinobi were surprised to see Senju Hashirama emerge from darkness and he was not alone. Accompanying him as well was his brother Senju Tobirama, and 4 other individuals. The first person one was a tall elegant woman, with bright red hair arranged in buns with hairpins in them and 3 clips in the front. She had large pupilless eyes and wore an elaborate, high-collared kimono with large obi tied around her waist. She also wore a dark shade of lipstick and had a diamond mark on her forehead, similar to the one his mother Tsunade and he had. She also wore tags with kanji written on them in her hair decals. The second person was tall man about Hashirama's height. He had several similar facial features to Hashirama, meaning they had to be related in some way. He had dark hair, that was spiked up and tan skin, like Hashirama, and brown eyes. He wore an old-style green Konoha flak jacket, with a long black sleeveless coat over it, which had green leaves decorating the edgings and standard blank shinobi pants with a kunai holster strapped to his right leg. The man also wore standard combat-style shinobi sandals, with bandages wrapped around his ankles, upper biceps, and right leg, and wore fingerless gloves over the bandages around his hands and arms. 1. The third person was another woman slightly shorter than the second man. She was extremely beautiful, with long blonde hair that fell just above her waist and pale blue eyes. She wore simply dark blue long-sleeved robe that matched her shorts and a large grey obi around her waist to hold her robe together. Underneath her robes she wore a simple short-sleeved fishnet shirt and wore a pair of open-toed sandals with high heels on her feet. 1. The fourth and final person was a young boy with short light brown hair, who looked to be about Naruto's age. He had green-gray eyes and distinct blushes on his cheeks and wore a dark teal poncho top and light green pants and a Konoha headband around his head. Hello again Naruto-kun, spoke the Shodai with a kind smile. Upon seeing both his ancestors, Naruto instinctively went into a defensive stance. Seeing this, the Shodai quickly raised his hand in a peaceful manner. Easy Naruto-kun, easy, there is no need for violence, my brother and I are free from the control of the Edo Tensei. At first Naruto was hesitant to let down his guard, but given where they were, it did make sense that Orochimaru would no longer be in control of them. How are you two here? Naruto asked before a look of concern appeared on his face. Akar-chan, Ero-sennin and Gigi-okay. After you sacrificed yourself to save your mother, we were able to free ourselves the binds of the Edo Tensei, answered the Nadaime. As for Saru and the others, they're fine, although your mother was greatly distraught by your dead. Hearing this, Naruto lowered his head. Since he did not mean to cause his mother pain, he only wanted to protect her. Seeing this, Hashirama went over and placed his hand gently on the boy's shoulder and smiled down at him, and told him that it would be all right. After which he then turned to Tsukumo, who was standing away from the group. I apologize for intruding in on you like this, we did not expect Naruto-kun to be with anyone here. No apologies are needed, Shodai-sama. Nadaime-sama, I am honored by your presence, said Tsukumo with a slight bow of respect to the two former Hokages and the other members of the group. Also, I believe that it would be best if I were to take my leave for a while and allow all of you to speak in private. You may stay if you wish, since this is your camp, said the Nadaime, who did not feel right by forcing the man to leave. Thank you, but no, as I would only be intruding, I shall take a walk for a while and allow you to speak to Naruto-kun alone. After the two Hokages apologized to him again, Tsukumo turned to Naruto. It was very nice talking to you, Naruto-san, said the silver-haired shinobi and gave the blonde boy a small smile and walked into the surrounding darkness and disappeared before Naruto could say anything. After Tsukumo left, Naruto turned to the two former Hokages and their companions, who began to take different seats around the fire. The Shodai sat on the log to Naruto's right, with the tall red-headed woman sitting next to him. The other man and woman sat on the log directly opposite Naruto, with the fire in between them, while the Nadaime and the young boy sat down on the log on Naruto's left. Seeing that everyone was now sitting, Naruto decided to follow suit and sat down on the log behind him, after which the Shodai spoke. Now then, said the founder of Konoha with a joyful grin, since we were unable to have a proper conversation when we first met. My brother and I thought now was the best time, since it is unlikely we will speak again like this for many years. Huh, why's that? Don't tell me I'm going to be staying here. Naruto asked in concern. Oh no, no, instead I believe that you will return to the world of the living very soon, replied the Shodai with a knowing look. Huh, but how? I'm not certain myself, it is just a feeling I have had ever since I first saw you. What do you mean? Before the Shodai could answer, the woman next to him placed her hand on his left arm. Hashirama-kun, before you begin, perhaps you should introduce the rest of us, since I'm certain Naruto-kun is curious about us. Oh yay, sorry, I forgot, replied the former Hokage with a big goofy grin, before blushing from embarrassment and scratching the back of his head, similar to what Naruto would do when he did something silly. Naruto-kun, allow me to introduce you to my lovely wife, Mito, our son Itsuki, his wife Aiz and their son Nawaki. After hearing Naruto's eyes widen in shock, as these people were his family. Wait a second, you're Mito-bas and Granny Mito, Naruto said in surprise as he pointed at the red-headed woman, who just smiled and nodded. And you two are my grandparents. Continued the blonde boy as he pointed to the couple in front of him. Yep, that's us, nice to meet Magasan, grandson, greeted Itsuki with a grin, that was not unlike his father's and Naruto's, while his wife Aiz just nodded and smiled. So that would then make you, Naruto said as he slowly turned Nawaki. Yep, I'm your uncle, so you can call me Nawaki Ajisan, said Nawaki with a grin just like his father, grandfather and Naruto's. Just great, I have a shrimp for an uncle, muttered Naruto with a deadpan look. Hey, who are you calling a shrimp? Yelled Nawaki angrily as he stood up and walked over to Naruto, who stood up in turn. You, who else? Naruto said as he looked down at his uncle. Hey, just because you're a bit taller, doesn't mean you get to call me that. 2. Really, and what should I call you then? How about Pipsqueak or maybe Runt? Naruto said with a cheeky grin which infuriated shorter Senju. Alright, that's it. Let's go, Blondie, even if you are my Nei-chan's kid, I'll kick your ass. Cried Nawaki. Bring it, brat, said Naruto, ignoring the fact that he and Nawaki were the same age. But just when the two young Senju were about to go at one another, they were both clonked on the head. After nursing the large bumps on their heads, the two boys looked up and saw Senju Aiz standing over them, with her arms folded with a very irritated expression on her face, and a dark aura surrounding her, highlighting his menacing appearance, which terrified both boys. You will both sit down and be quiet and listen to what Hashirama-sama has to say, or do I have to teach you both some manners? No, Ka-chan Aba-san, said the two frightened boys quickly before taking their sets, while those around just smiled in amusement at the antics of the two boys. As Naruto took his set, he watched his grandmother take her set next to his grandfather, who was still smiling. Man, I think I understand where Ka-chan gets her scary side from. The blonde Senju thought as he glanced again at his grandmother. Since the pissed-off look she had reminded him way too much of his own mother when she was annoyed with him. They even had the same dark aura around them. Once everything had settled down again, Hashirama turned to Naruto. Perhaps Naruto-kun, you could tell us a bit about yourself and your life in Konoha, so that we can get to know one another. Since I know Mito-chan and everyone here is interested to know more about you. Okay, said Naruto, before he started to tell about his life in Konoha along with some of the things that happened before he came to Konoha. He even filled them in other things they were unaware of, such as the massacre of the Uchiha clan, which Tobimura found rather fitting when he heard they were killed by one of their own. Naruto then went to tell them on how his father was the Yondaime Hokage, which of course surprised Senju family. Although the Shodai was rather ecstatic by the news, and asked Naruto about his father, wanting to know what he was like and if he was a good Hokage. Naruto naturally answered as best as he could, although couldn't help but be weirded out by his ancestors' eccentric behavior. After a while though, Naruto went on to explain how his father sealed the Kyuubi into him, and how he had Mokuton and 4 nature affinities natural. This of course shocked everyone in the group minus Hashirama and Tobimura, realizing this meant for Naruto. No way, you inherited Hashirama Jijisen Mokuton bloodline limit, Nawaki said with some envy after hearing the news. It's true, both Hashirama and I have seen him use it, said the Nadaime. He's even has a talent for Suiten ninjutsu not unlike me, where he created a water dragon from just moisture in the air and from the surrounding trees. After hearing this, Naruto could not help but smirk, since it made him happy to be praised by his great uncle, who during his time as Hokage was credited of being the strongest shinobi alive. It's impressive that you can do so much at so young an age. Clearly Tsunade-chan and her teammate Jiraiya have taught you well, said Itsuki with a hint of pride in his voice. Yay. Shizune also taught me a lot too. Shizune? Nawaki asked in surprise, did Ne-chan have another kid before you? Nah, Shizune is Ka-chan's apprentice. She is also my godmother but is more like a big sister to me, since she helped Ka-chan raise me. She also made sure that Ero-sennin never tried anything funny with me when Ka-chan wasn't around, Naruto answered. Ero-sennin? Nawaki asked, not understanding who Naruto meant. That my nickname for Uncle Jiraiya, since he a sage and a super pervert, which he likes to call himself. At hearing Naruto's nickname for Jiraiya, all 6 Senju laughed at the name. Nawaki especially liked it and only wished he had thought of it. Since he had a bit of an issue with the white-haired man after he learned that he had peeked on his sister when she was in the hot spring. After the laughter settled down, Naruto then went on to tell of his events in Nami no Kuni, Wave Country, and then to the Chunin exam. But when he got to the part about meeting Orochimaru in the Forest of Death, Nawaki interrupted him. No way, Orochimaru-sensei would never do something like that. It's true, said Naruto with a large frown, that bastard Orochimaru has done things that can never be forgiven. Indeed, said the Nadaime, who then went to explain that Orochimaru was the one who used the Edo Tensei to summon him and the Shodai. But also told him about his immortality jutsu, which disgusted everyone, including Naruto, who had been unaware of this and now understood why Orochimaru wanted him and Sasuke. When the Nadaime Hokage finished, Naruto even went on to explain what Orochimaru had done to Yamato and the other infants he kidnapped. The news of course horrified and disgusted the group, especially the Shodai, who was both saddened and angered by the news, since it was his DNA Orochimaru used. Once Naruto had finished, the group remained silent. Nawaki of course took the news the hardest since he had looked up to the man when he was alive. I can't believe Orochimaru-sensei would do such horrible things like that, said Nawaki, who lowered his head in distraught. Seeing this, Aiz went over to her son and held him close to her in the hope of confronting him. What happened to him to make him turn into such a horrible person? Nawaki asked, since although his former teacher looked creepy, he had been a good and kind teacher to him and showed him a lot of cool things. He had even encouraged the young boy when he told him about his dream to become Hokage one day. Evil is not something born in a person, Nawaki, said the Nadaim Hokage. More than likely the events in his life and some of the choices he made after your passing caused him to turn out the way he is now. After a few moments the Shodai decided to move the matter away from Orochimaru and asked Naruto to continue filling him in on the events of Konoha. During Naruto recount, he informed him of the destruction of Azushiogaku village hidden by whirling tides, which of course saddened his great-grandmother. But she cheered up when Naruto mentioned that Kushina was his sensei. "Ah, so little Kushina-chan is one of your senseis," said Mito with a smile. "You know Kushina-sensei?" Naruto asked in surprise. "Yes, she arrived in Konoha shortly before my passing," answered Mito. "She came from the branch family of my clan and was highly skilled at a young age in Fuinjutsu. She also possessed a unique chakra which allowed her restrain and subdue Biju. It was because of this that she was sent to Konoha, since unlike the other villages we did not possess a Jinchuriki and so needed people with unique abilities like her to defend Konoha from other villages' Jinchuriki." 3. Nodding to this, Naruto then went to explain his different battles during the Chunin exam. You seem to be quite popular with the girls, Naruto-kun, said Itsuki in a teasing tone, after hearing about the number of girls Naruto was friends with, causing his grandson to blush a bit. "It's not like that," denied the embarrassed boy, "we're just friends." "Have you kissed any of them?" asked a grinning Nawaki. Naruto of course did not answer and looked down to the ground in an attempt to hide his blush. Seeing the blush, Nawaki's grin grew even bigger, seeing this as a perfect chance to tease his nephew. "Ha, you did," yelled the young Senju excitedly, "so which one was it?" Naruto of course did not answer, but when he saw that everyone's eyes were on him, he knew they would not drop the subject until he answered. "Mai-chan. You mean that girl from the Hattori clan you defeated?" Nawaki asked. "Yay. After I won our fight and healed her injuries, she pulled me down to her and kissed me and they asked me to marry her." After hearing this, the entire group erupted in laughter. Nawaki, who had been laughing so hard, actually fell off the log and onto the ground, but continued to laugh. Even Mito and Eyes could not help but giggle at the image of the young Hattori girl kissing Naruto in front of everyone and then asking him to marry her. Naruto although just brought his hands to his face and moaned loudly since he had now become the laughingstock of his own clan. As the others continued to laugh, Itsuki spared his grandson a sympathetic smile, since in many ways Naruto's meeting of Mai reminded him of his first meeting of his wife Isle, who at the time was strong upcoming Kunoichi and often challenged him to fights in an attempt to defeat him and prove her strength to the village. Over time their relationship developed and they slowly fell in love, although neither one of them were willing to admit it. At least not until after one of their sparring matches, Itsuki landed on top of her and inadvertently kissed her, which then resulted in a heavy make-out session between the two of them. After a while though the laughter slowly died down, where a chuckling Tobirama turned to look at his elder brother. "It seems that the women of the Hattori clan have not changed since our time, brother. In fact, if memory serves, a large number of them were practically throwing themselves at you." "Really? You failed to mention that to me, Hashirama-kun," said Mito, who turned to her husband and smiled. Seeing the smile, the former Hokage became very nervous, since that smile terrified him more than anything else, both in the world of the living and in the afterlife. To most people Mito's smile would seem like nothing more than a regular smile from a kind woman. But that was only because they did not know Mito as well as he did and were unaware of the evil that lurked behind that smile. Well, you see, the thing is," said the now sweating Hokage, who was desperately trying to think of a way out of this mess. "Yes, Hashirama-kun, I'm listening," said Mito with a terrifying crimson-red aura surrounding her, which made her appearance even more sinister-looking, making the male members of the group just as nervous. Seeing the terrifying aura coming from his great-grandmother, Naruto could not help but notice how similar it was to the same aura that his sensei Kushina gave out when she was pissed off. This of course made the blonde wonder if this was some kind of trait that all Uzumaki women shared. It would also explain why his mother gave off a similar kind of aura when she was mad as well. After a while though Mito decided to drop the matter, causing her husband to sigh in relief and thank the heavens. But his relief was short-lived as Mito then told him in a tone was that all too sweet, that they would talk about the matter later. This of course, made the late Hokage gulp audibly and shiver in fear, and made him wonder if he would be better off being sealed inside the Shinigami's stomach for all of entirety. Seeing Hashirama cower in the fear in the face of his wife's anger, the younger Senju brother smirked. Since despite common belief, Hashimaru could be brought to heel quite quickly by others, like Tobirama. He was also prone to sulking when reprimanded by others, like his wife. But then again, Mito was not someone who was to be underestimated, as during her prime, Mito was regarded as the strongest Kunoichi alive to the point where even Tobirama was fearful of angering her. After breathing a small sigh of relief, the Shodai turned back to Naruto, a smile at his great-grandson. He had noted the similarity of Naruto's relationship with Mai when compared to his son and his wife's, since he had been the one who found them making out in the training area. Something that still brought a smile to his face given the embarrassed looks the two had when he found them, and how they tried to untangle themselves from one another and fix the disheveled clothing. This of course made the shitty smile even more, since male Senju had a knack for attracting women, strong-willed women, who could put them in their place when needed. After a little while, Hashirama decided to move the conversation along and away from past events and onto the matter to which he wanted to speak to Naruto. Tell me, Naruto-kun, what do you know of our clan history? Well, I know that we were a famous clan of shinobi, and we were regarded by most as the strongest clan at the time. The only clan that could challenge us was the Uchiha clan, who were our biggest rivals back during the Shinobi clan wars. I also know that the Uzumaki clan and us are distantly related, where we share a common ancestor. I see, well then I guess I have much to tell you then, said Hashirama. What do you mean? Well, you see, our conflict with the Uchiha clan goes much deeper than simple rivalry. In fact, one could call it a family feud. A family feud, repeated Naruto, not fully understanding his ancestor. Yes, for you see, like the Uzumaki and our clan, we share a common ancestry to the Uchiha clan. Wait, a saying that Sasuke and I are related? In a way, but distantly, said the Nadaime. So would that mean that the Hyuga clan also related to us? Since I had heard that the Uchiha clan Sharingan derived from the Hyuga clan. Who told you that? The Nadaime asked in surprise. It's a story that has been mentioned around the village. Well, whoever told you that is wrong, said Hashirama. Although like our clan and the Uzumaki clan, the Hyuga and Uchiha clans do share a common ancestry with one another. But neither the Uchiha clan nor the Sharingan sprung from the Hyuga clan, also unlike Uzumaki and our clan, they do not share a close relationship with one another. If I were to guess, I would say someone from the Hyuga clan made up that story and spread that story around, so to elevate their clan's status after the Uchiha clan were wiped out, Itsuki remarked. I wouldn't be surprised, muttered Naruto, since if Neji had been any indication, the Hyuga clan probably had several rather arrogant members who would do something like that. If we share the same ancestry, then why has there been so much fighting between us and the Uchiha clan? Naruto asked. Since if they shared a common heritage, they could find common ground and have good relations with one another. I'm afraid that reason goes back almost 1,000 years ago, back to the time before shinobi existed, answered Hashirama sadly. Hashirama, this is no time for a history lesson, move on to matters that actually matter now, said the Nadaime in a no-nonsense tone. Finding that a history lesson of their clan's beginning was not relevant to what was happening to Konoha. After being reprimanded by his brother, a dark cloud of depression hung over the Shodai Hokage, who began to sulk. Why you're always being so mean to me, Tobimura, mumbled Hashirama, who was now acting like a child, who had just been scolded by his father. Because you're always acting like a little kid, especially when you start sulking when someone lectures you. Yelled the younger of the Senju brothers angrily, since he was always irked by how childish his brother could be. As this was happening, Naruto was left slack-jawed by his ancestor's behavior, who was now acting like a 5-year-old, and allowed his younger brother push him around and scold him. After hearing all the stories about his great-grandfather, Naruto had expected a wise and powerful shinobi, a natural leader brimming with confidence and held aura of authority that demanded respect. But seeing how different reality and fantasy were, the young blonde found himself now questioning some of the other stories that he had been told about his great-grandfather. Eventually, though, Hashirama was knocked out of his depression by a hard slap to the back of his head from his wife. Hashirama, act your age and stop embarrassing yourself, scolded the red-headed woman before turning to Tobimura. And you, stop being cruel to brother, you know full well that Hashirama-kun was never able to resolve his bouts of depression. Besides, Naruto-kun needs to hear this, he has a right to know about his lineage and where he comes from. By learning about the origins of the Senju clan, perhaps he can learn from the mistake that we made, and prevent history from repeating itself. When Mito finished, the younger of the two Senju brothers just rolled his eyes at his brother's wife scolding. Seeing this, Mito gave her brother-in-law one of her famed death glares, which could cow even her husband, daring the Nadaime Hokage to make a retort. Upon meeting Mito's glare, the Nadaime, who was about to remark on how Mito was acting like a mother hen, flinched slightly, and wisely decided to keep the comparison to himself. Now then, Hashimura-kun, please continue, said Mito with a kind smile to her husband, before turning to the Nadaime, if that is all right with you, Tobimura-kun. Where she then gave the gray-haired shinobi another deadly glare, who again wisely remained silent, not wanting to anger the red-headed woman any further, and simply waved his hand, signaling for them to continue. By this time everything was settled. Naruto and the others all had large sweat drops at the back of their heads, not really believing what they had seen. Naruto was of course the most unnerved of the others, and was beginning to get a better understanding of his family. I take back what I said earlier, Ka-chan clearly gets her scary side from Mito Barkan. The blonde boy thought with a slight shudder, since the way his great-grandmother had handled the two former Hokage reminded him of how his mother would handle Jiraiya or the Sandaime when she was pissed off, only with less collateral damage. He also began to wonder why his great-grandmother never tried to become Hokage. Anyone who can cow the Shodai and Nadaime Hokage, the two strongest shinobi of their time, was clearly someone to be feared and respected. After a few minutes, Hashimura finally got over his depression and started to tell his story again. Well, let's see, where was I? Oh yes, now I remember. You see, during this dark time, nations fought each other constantly, where when one war ended another one would begin in an endless cycle of violence and hatred. At that time it seemed as if the world would tear itself apart from all the fighting, which was why it became known as the Age of Endless War. But then one day a man rose, a young monk in fact, who possessed a unique bloodline limit called the Rinnegan. The Rinnegan, repeated Naruto, you mean a Dujutsu like the Byakugan and the Sharingan? Yes, although the Rinnegan is much more powerful than Byakugan or the Sharingan. According to our legends, it was said to have given the monk great power, allowing him to discover the truth of chakra, thus allowing him to bring forth all ninjutsu. How did he do that? Naruto asked, not fully understanding. According to legend, one of the gifts that the Rinnegan bestowed on the monk was the ability to master all 5 basic nature transformations that form the basis of ninjutsu. In essence, the Rinnegan gave him all 5 primary nature affinities. No way, said Naruto in shock. Yes, although that was only one of the abilities he gained, since according to legend it gave him several others abilities, but what they remains unknown. It is said though that once he mastered the Rinnegan he went out into the world and tried to lead it into an era of peace instead of conflict. He traveled across the land, spreading his ideal and religion, the Ninshu shinobi sect, which eventually came to be known as ninjutsu. His great deeds and ultimate desire to bring peace to the war-torn world made him widely known as the Konoyo no Kuseishu, the savior of this world. But he was primarily known as the Rikudo Sennin, and because he was the one who founded ninjutsu and the shinobi world. He also became known the Kami no Shinobi, god of shinobi. So that's what Ero Sennin meant when he said the originally Kami no Shinobi. Naruto thought. But before he could comment any what he had been told, the Shodai continued with his story. But despite the Rikudo Sennin's godlike power, he was still mortal and could not achieve his ultimate goal in creating a lasting peace in a single lifetime. Knowing this, he chose to entrust his strength, dream and legacy to his 2 sons, who had each inherited a portion of his power. The eldest son, who had inherited the sage's eyes along with his powerful chakra and spiritual energy, believed that power was the true key to peace. The younger son, however, who had inherited the sage's body, along with his powerful will and physical energy, believed that love was the true key to peace. It was because of these 2 conflicting beliefs, that the sage was forced to choose which of his 2 sons was to become his successor. On his deathbed, the sage chose his younger son to be his successor. Overcome by bitterness and envy, the elder son attacked the younger, sparking a war between them and their families, which has been going on for over 1,000 years. So the rivalry between our clan and the Sasuke's clan has been going on for over 1,000 years. All because 2 brothers simply couldn't get along, said Naruto, who found the whole reason behind it beyond stupid. To put it bluntly, yes, said the Nadaime, but the conflict between our 2 families goes much deeper than a simple feud between brothers. It is a conflict of ideals, and ideals shape the type of world we live in. What do you mean? As descendants of the younger son of the Rikido Sennin, the Senju clan inherited the sage's younger son's belief that love was the key to peace. This ideal is where the ideal of the will of fire sprung from, which Konoha was founded upon and what the shinobi of Konoha are taught to believe in. The Uchiha clan however inherited the sage's elder son's enmity over the sage's decision to name his brother as his successor, fueling their hatred for us, resulting in a curse of hatred. But that is all in the past now, isn't it? Naruto asked. You were able to make peace with them and founded Konoha together. The Uchiha even fought alongside you during the Great Shinobi World Wars. That may be true, but grudges are not so easily let go of, especially those created during war or conflict, since not everyone is able to let go of their hatred, replied the Nadaime with a stern look. This is especially true for those born into the Uchiha clan, who are an impressible clan, and are therefore cursed by it. Cursed, repeated Naruto, not understanding what his ancestor meant. Most people believe that we the Senju clan valued friendship and love over jutsu, whilst the Uchiha valued jutsu alone, explained the Nadaime. But in actuality, this is false. The Uchiha clan were the ones who valued love and friendship above all else, so great was their value of these things that they deemed it necessary to seal them off. What do you mean? Asked Naruto, I still don't get it. When a member of the Uchiha clan discovers these feelings, it's as if a torrent is unleashed within and it awakens something even greater than what we Senju know. Then why all the fighting? Asked Naruto, if both our clan treasured love and friendship, why were we enemies? Ah, but that is where the problem lay, my young descendant. Their feelings were in fact too powerful, and if they were left unchecked, they would turn into something dark. Still not getting at what the Nadaime was saying, Naruto was about to comment again, but before he could, the Nadaime continued on. For example, if a member of the Uchiha clan loses someone they love or who is dear to them, such as siblings, parents, lovers or close friends, then their feelings will be twisted into something dark and turn into an indomitable hatred that will consume them and everyone around them, if not stopped. I have seen it happen countless times within the Uchiha clan, and without fail, a symptom always follows it. A symptom, repeated Naruto, whose curiosity was no piqued. What symptom? The anguish and despair that precedes the loss of those so close to a member of the Uchiha clan is so great that it causes their brains to release a special kind chakra that affects their optic nerves. This symptom is called the Sharingan, the eye that reflects their feelings, and gives them a considerable boost in power, but as I said before, these dark feelings eventually consume them and they fall into a deprived path, which eventually leads to their own ruin. As Tobimura continued to talk, Naruto found himself enthralled by his ancestor's every word, since he was learning things he never even heard about. But at the same time his thoughts turned to a certain Uchiha that he knew, where things about him suddenly started to make sense. No wonder Sasuke is so dark. Naruto thought, when he lost his clan, his love for them turned into hate for the one who killed them. As Naruto thought about Sasuke, he could help but pity the young raven-haired boy even more. But before he could put any more thought on Sasuke, his attention turned back to the Nidaime who was speaking again. The further down a member of the Uchiha clan falls into this path of hatred, the more powerful their eyes become, and the harder it is to reason with them, as was the case with Uchiha Madara. That I am afraid is unfortunately true, Hashimura said with a sad look. There was a time where Madara and I shared a common dream, which was to bring peace and create a place where future generations could live peacefully. But after the loss of his young brother, Uchiha Izuna, who meant the world to him, Madara slowly began to change into something dark. Wait, didn't you guys hate one another? A confused Naruto asked, since from what he had heard, his ancestor and Madara were bitter enemies. But from the way the Shodai was talking about him, it sounded more like they had been friends. Smiling sadly at his young descendant, the famed Kami no Shinobi shook his head. I'm afraid that is another misconception, Naruto-kun. Madara and I were in fact once close friends. Stunned by this revelation, Naruto's eyes widened in shock and stared at the former Hokage in disbelief. How? When? Sighing at this, Hashirama stared at the fire for a few moments before answering Naruto's question. When I was young during the Great Shinobi Clan War, I often left my clan's compound to explore. During one of my trips, I came across a young Madara. We both knew that we came from rival clans, but we both knew that the only way we could survive the countless fight that was going on, was to become friends. Every few days Madara and I would meet up at the same place, to talk and train with one another. Later on I even shared my dream on creating Konoha with him, a place for people to live and children, like you Naruto-kun, could grow up to become strong shinobi. A place where shinobi would be assigned missions based on their skill set and not simply out of necessity for forces on a battlefield. It was a dream that both Madara and I agreed upon and wanted to achieve together. So what happened? Naruto asked, why did you become enemies? Sadly our families found out and we were forced to end our friendship, becoming mortal enemies instead, constantly fighting with one another, Hashirama answered with a sad look before continuing with the story. As the years passed, both of us eventually became the elders of our respected clans, where I made several attempts to convince him. But it was only after the death of his brother and one final battle with him, which resulted in my victory, was I able to convince him to make peace. Later we then founded Konoha on the very place where we used to meet when we were children. In fact it was Madara who came up with the name for our village. Seriously? Asked Naruto in surprise, who like most people believed that Hashirama was the one came up with the name for their village, given how he was the one who created most of the village and the surrounding forest with Mokuton powers. Smiling at Naruto's surprise, the Shodai nodded, yes, although I was the one who came up with the title of Hokage, and the idea to carve the faces of the Hokages onto the mountainside. Cool, said Naruto, who always thought the idea of carving the faces of the Hokages onto the mountain was an awesome idea. But the things I don't get is that if you guys eventually became friends again, why did Madara leave the village and challenge you? Sighing again sadly, Hashirama glanced over at his brother, who maintained a blank expression before answering his great-grandson's question. For a time it did seem like we could be friends again, but shortly after the village was built, and the time neared for a leader to be selected, I opted to have Madara become the Shodai Hokage, believing that he would be the best person for the job. But instead, the villagers and the shinobi selected me as Hokage, causing Madara to leave, even after I told him I would have him named to become the Nadaime Hokage in the event of my death, believing that they would see him in a better light after some time. Then why did he leave? Madara believed that the villagers and the shinobi would never accept him as Hokage, if he were to become it. He also believed that when I died, the village would then slowly turn against his clan. But when he tried to rally support from his clan, they turned their backs on him. They had grown tired of fighting with us, and believed he only desired to rekindle the flames of war because of his hatred and inability to let go of the past. Abandoned by his clan, and disgusted with the village we built together, Madara left and sought out the Kyuubi, and subdued it using his Sharingan. He later returned to Konoha in order to challenge me. I of course tried to reason with him and begged him to stop the fight and stand down. But he refused, and after a lengthy and hard-fought battle, which lasted all day and night, I killed him and captured the Kyuubi. When the Shodai finished, a single tear fell down his cheek, since he had never wanted to kill Madara and considered him a brother in all but blood. But sadly, he could not get through to his former friend and was forced to kill him to protect Konoha. Shortly after he finished his story, Hashirama suddenly felt a person's hand gently place itself on his shoulder, in a comforting manner. Turning, the Shodai saw that the person was his wife, who smiled sadly at him, as she knew how much Madara's death affected him, and hoped to at least ease his burden. Smiling at his wife's attempts to comfort him, Hashirama nodded and patted her hand, telling her that he would be alright. Seeing this, Naruto could not help but pity at his ancestor, knowing he could only imagine how hard it must have been for the former Hokage to kill his best friend. But as he was staring sadly at his ancestor, he suddenly realized something that Hashirama had said. Wait, you captured the Kyuubi? Yes, answered Mito. Originally I had planned to seal the Kyuubi into myself, using one of my clan's most powerful seals. But before I could perform the sealing, the Kyuubi realized what we were doing and unleashed all its power in one massive explosion, destroying itself and the surrounding area, preventing us from capturing him. Later, when the Kyuubi reformed, we planned to try and capture it again, since it was too powerful and dangerous to remain loose. Unfortunately, Kumo got to the Kyuubi first and tried to capture it for themselves, but failed in the attempt, where the Kyuubi escaped. Before we could track it down again, the First Great Shinobi World War began, and by the time it had ended, Konoha and the other villages were too weak to try. Especially since with Hashirama-kun gone, there was no one alive with the power to control or subdue it, and so we were forced to leave it, where it eventually hid itself away. At least until it came and attacked Konoha, muttered Naruto. Yes, that is something I find curious, commented the Nadaime, who decided to speak again. I find it rather suspicious that the Kyuubi would simply strike out of the blue on its own after remaining hidden for so long. Uncle, are you saying that someone was controlling it? Itsuki asked in surprise. Yes, although it is not impossible that the Kyuubi attacked out of its own free will. I find it more likely that someone was controlling it. But who? Madara and Hashirama-sama were the only ones who were ever able to control the tailed beasts, said Aiz. True, but that's not to say that someone out of the Uchiha clan could have learned how to control it. Since, like my brother's Mokuton bloodline limit, the Sharingan has the power to control Biju, so it's possible someone had learned how to do it too. But why? The Uchiha were already living in Konoha, and if it was destroyed they would be wiped out as well. So why would someone from their clan want to destroy Konoha? Asked Nawaki. True, but it is possible that an Uchiha outside the clan attacked Konoha, answered the former Hokage, and explained further after seeing the confused look on the others' faces. It's possible Madara had an heir, during the time he left Konoha to when he came back to the challenge Hashirama, and that heir had was the one controlling the Kyuubi in revenge against Konoha and the Uchiha clan. But it is also possible that it wasn't an Uchiha, since there are other ways for someone to suppress and control a Biju, said Mito. I suppose, murmured Tobirama, but didn't look convinced. Tobimara, why do you continue to spew such bigotry? Hashirama asked sadly. How many times did I tell you not to continue persecuting the Uchihas? And how many times must I tell to stop being so naive? Tobimara retorted coldly as he glared at his older brother, who this time did not back down. Besides, you can't blame me for skewing things the way I did after what Madara pulled. It was only a matter of time before they rebelled. Why do you despise the Uchiha clan so much, Tobimara? Mito asked sternly, surely it's not because of your clan's old feud. Hardly, scoffed the Nadaime, I simply kept a wary eye on any clan that threatened the peaceful existence of our village. I even kept a close eye on the Hyuga clan. The Hyuga, but why? Naruto asked. The Hyuga were a powerful clan in their own right and in some aspect could rival either our clan or the Uchiha clan, answered the Nadaime. They were always eager to improve their status in the village and become more powerful. I was wary of possible infighting within the clan, caused by their tradition with the cage bird seal, which could spread out into the village. After hearing this, Naruto just nodded, since he great-granduncle had been right about the Hyuga clan and their infighting, given the events with Neji and the Branch family. The only reason I was so fixated on the Uchiha clan was because they had a way of always attracting my attention. I was fearful of the possibility of another Madara returning. I knew that Madara's will was secretly shared by quite a few within his clan, which was why I kept such a close guard on them. But not all the Uchiha were like that, Uncle, Itsuki remarked. Like his father, Itsuki thought his uncle was overly harsh on the Uchiha clan, since he had been friends with some members of the clan. I won't deny that there were those within the Uchiha clan whose loyalty and commitment to the village was without question. They were ones who had overcome the Uchiha's curse and rejected their clan for the greater well-being of the village. But it did not mean all of them had, and there was a chance that some of them could one day turn against us one day. That was why I gave them the task of military police, which was a duty they could excel at. I wanted to channel their power into something that could benefit the village. Sighing once again, Hashirama spoke, the matter of the Uchiha clan and whether or not the Kyuubi was being controlled by an Uchiha or someone else, matters little now, brother. The past cannot be undone, so therefore there is nothing we can do about it, especially since we are no longer among the living world. Besides, we are now moving away to main topic, which was why I wanted to speak to Naruto-kun about and why I believe it is not his time yet. What do you mean? Naruto asked. I'm referring to an ancient prophecy that was told to me once. What prophecy? Naruto asked. Long ago, when I was not much older than you, I discovered my Mokuton bloodline limit. At the time I had difficulty controlling it and using it, so I decided to leave our clan and go on a training trip to learn how to control and use it better. For several months I traveled around training myself in different environments to learn to use my abilities better. My training was hard, and my progress was not coming along as quickly as I had hoped. But then one day when I was traveling across a narrow cliff side, the ground underneath me gave way and I fell into a raging river below, where it washed me away. When I came to, I found myself in a bed, and then I learned that I had been found unconscious and half drowned. Who saved you? Naruto asked. That I cannot say, for I was sworn to secrecy, and never to reveal it to anyone, answered the Shodai with a serious look, which told Naruto he would say no more. After about a minute or so, Hashirama then continued with his story. Later when I recovered and explained my ability and why I ended in the river, they got rather excited and then brought me to their leader, who then told me a prophecy that was foretold by one of the great elders. At first they thought I was the person who had been foretold in their prophecy. But shortly afterwards they discover I was not the one they had been waiting for, but they did believe I had a part to play. So they agreed to help me, and after several years of intensive training, I learned how to use my abilities to their full extent. Were if it not for them, I would not be the shinobi I became. So, if I were to go there, do you think they would help me the way they did you? Naruto asked. Yes, in fact I have no doubt they will help, since I believe you are the one they are waiting for, answered the Shodai. Me. But what makes you think I the one in the prophecy, when it wasn't you? Naruto asked, what did the prophecy say? I'm afraid I cannot say that either, since it is something you must hear from them. Replied the Shodai with a smirk. Geez, is there anything you can tell me? Naruto asked annoyance since he was little irritated with his forefather, who just grinned back at him and messed up his hair in a playful manner. There are just some things that you need to learn for yourself, Naruto-kun, so that you can learn from them and become stronger. But I can promise you they will give you the guidance you need. But how can you be so certain I am that person? Because I have faith in you, Naruto-kun, the Shodai replied with an encouraging smile. When you arrived inside the barrier, you showed many qualities that proved to me you were that person, and I do not mean Mokuton or your other shinobi skills. Still not fully understanding his ancestor, Naruto was about to ask him something, but before he could say anything the Shodai spoke again. Inside the barrier you showed courage and fortitude when you came to help your mother and the others. Even though you knew you stood little chance against any of us, you still continued to fight on. You also showed compassion and caring when you helped heal Sarutobi's and your mother's wounds. But more importantly, you showed love and sacrifice when you pushed Tsunade out of the path of Orochimaru's sword, knowing full well you would be hit, qualities of a leader. It was because of that we were able to free ourselves from the bounds of the Edo Tensei. You showed us today that the will of fire has been successfully passed down onto your generation and still burns strongly. You also showed us that you had inherited our will and that you carry the ideals of our clan. That is why I believe you are the one spoken in the prophecy and that you will soon return to the living world, for you still have things to do. After hearing this, Naruto remained silent and thought about everything his ancestor said, but before he could respond to his great-grandfather, he heard the Nadaime Hokage talking to him, and turned to him. Naruto, if my brother is right and you do indeed return to the living world, I suggest that you keep a close eye on that Uchiha boy named Sasuke, who you mentioned. Tobimura, don't start that again. Hashirama cried angrily. Silence, brother, rounded the younger of the Senju brothers in an angry and commanding voice, showing exactly why he had been chosen as the Nadaime Hokage of Konohagakure Hidden Leaf. Naruto needs to be wary of the boy, especially if the loss of his clan has affected him in the way I believe it did, where it would be only a matter of time before he turns dark, and Naruto has seen it, haven't you? Asked the former Hokage, who had seen how Naruto reacted when he told him of the curse of the Uchiha clan. When the Nadaime turned to him, Naruto couldn't help but weather slightly under his intense stare of the former Hokage and nodded. Yay, I've seen Sasuke's dark side, replied Naruto, remembering what Sasuke was like when he was under the influence of Orochimaru's curse seal. And yay, he's a bit of a jerk at times, but that doesn't mean that he will turn dark, like Madara. In response to Naruto's answer, the Nadaime just shook his head, since in many ways Naruto reminded Tobimura of his brother Hashirama. Not only were both of them medics, who possessed Mokuton and were strong, talented shinobi, but they were both idealists, who were too kind and naive when it came to certain people, especially Uchiha. That may be true, Naruto, but as I said before, I have seen it happen too many times with the Uchiha, and there is a strong chance that he will go down the same path as Madara and turn against the village. If that does happen, it is likely that the two of you will have to fight. Not necessarily. If Naruto was to befriend him, get to know the boy, he could perhaps persuade him from go down that path, spoke Hashimura, hoping for another possible alternative. Like you did with Madara. Tobimura replied rather harshly, which caused his brother to flinch. Tobimura rounded Mito angrily, believing that was uncalled for. I'm simply stating the truth, the Nadaime replied coldly. Naruto can try to deter the boy if he wants, but I fear he would only be wasting his time. After saying this, Tobimura turned to his great-grandnephew, who did not know how to respond. Naruto, you must understand, to be a true shinobi of Konoha and to be a good Hokage one day, you must be willing to do things you don't want to. And do what is best for Konoha. Being Hokage is not an easy thing. As Hokage you are responsible for the safety of Konoha and everyone who lives in it, therefore you must think of the village first and yourself second. When the Nadaime finished, Naruto numbly nodded his head, and although he understood what the Nadaime was trying to tell him, he felt that what his ancestor was suggesting was rather cold, and wanted to at least try and help Sasuke. Seeing that Naruto was having the Shodai spoke, regardless of what my brother says Naruto, do not give up on the boy. Even if he is right, if you do not at least try, you will regret it later. Nodding to his great-grandfather's words, Naruto was about to respond, but before he could say anything, he noticed that his body was glowing. What's happening to me? It seems your time here is finally up, said the Shodai with a pleased look at being proven right. You're returning to the living world. But wait, there are still things I need to ask you, said Naruto. I'm afraid there is no more time, Naruto. Go to our family library, you will find scrolls that may be of use to you there. But if you truly wish to master Umokoten powers and unlock its true potential, you must find the Valley of the Four Winds, there you will find the help you'll need. But how will I find it? Naruto asked, since he had no clue where the valley was. Look for a book on bonsai care, there you will find what you'll need to find the valley, answered Hashirama. But what if I fail? Naruto asked, since you could not help but doubt himself a little and did not want to let his family down. You will not fail, Naruto-kun. How can you be so sure? Because we believe in you, Hashirama replied with reassuring smile. You're the last of our clan, Naruto-kun, and have not only inherited our gifts, but also embody our ideals. You're the hope of our clan. The hope of the Senju clan, said the Itsuki with a kind smile. Encouraged his ancestors' words, Naruto smiled and nodded and told them he would not let them down. Take care, Naruto-kun, live a long life and be happy, said Mito as she smiled kindly at her great-grandson. Follow your heart, Naruto, it will not let you down, said Ice, who was also smiling at him. Say hey to Tsunade for me, cried Nawai. Yes, and please send her our love as well, added Itsuki as he wrapped his arm around his wife. I will, Naruto replied. Oh, and Naruto, make sure you have plenty of fun, said Hashirama with a knowing smile. But before Naruto could even ask what his great-grandfather meant, he disappeared in a flash of white light. Hey Jigen, what did you mean when you said that? Nawaki asked, as he gave his grandfather a confused look. Oh, just a little something I set up when I was still Hokage, replied the former Hokage with another knowing smirk. Hashirama, you don't mean? Groaned Tobimura, realizing what his brother was talking about, and raised his right hand to his face in disbelief. Before any of the others could even ask what the younger Senju brother meant, Tsukumo suddenly reappeared out of the dark. It seems Naruto-kun left. Yes, he has returned to the living world, answered Hashirama. Good, said the silver-haired man, since he was glad Naruto had a second chance to live his life. Thank you again for allowing us to use your camp to talk to him, and I apologize again for having you to leave it, said Hashirama. Nodding to this, the former Konoha shinobi assured the former Hokage that it was no trouble. But before he could say any more, he suddenly felt a massive killing intent coming from the Hokage's wife, who was now staring at her husband with the same sickly sweet smile she had earlier. Hashirama-kun, please tell me you did not do what I think you did. Mito asked, who, like Tobimura, had just realized what her husband was on about. Hey, well you see, said the now nervous Shodai Hokage, who was starting to sweat a little from his wife's stare. Can I get a little help here, guys? The late Hokage asked as he looked to his brother and the others, but found that they had suddenly disappeared, leaving him alone with a rather annoyed Mito. Traitors, whatever happened to family sticking together? The founder of Konoha thought, before he came face to face with a still smiling Mito, who now had the same angry crimson-red aura she had before, and was cracking her knuckles in a similar manner to her granddaughter. At that moment the former Kami no Shinobi could have sworn he saw the image of a raging beast hover over his wife. I think it's about time we had that little chat I mentioned earlier, Hashirama-kun, said Mito, where her smile grew even more, making her appearance seem demonic to the former Hokage, who was now cowering before the wrath of his furious wife, as he towered over him. Moments later the Shodai Hokage's terrified screams could be heard throughout the void. In the stadium, enter Naruto OST Despair. Above the stadium on the now ruined rooftop, a large group of shinobi, mainly made up of Konoha shinobi, were gathered over the body of one Senju Naruto. Kneeling next to his still body was a weeping Tsunade, who once again broke into tears after seeing her son's body. "My beautiful, beautiful baby boy," said a crying Tsunade as she rubbed her hand against Naruto's cheek in a tenderly manner. "You were too good, too pure for this cruel world." Kneeling down next to his old teammate, Jiraiya did his best to console the grieving mother, while at the same time fighting back his own tears, knowing if he let them fall, he would break down himself. Standing next to their old student, Ma and Pa watched sadly as Jiraiya did his best to comfort the heartbroken Tsunade. But despite Jiraiya's efforts, they knew that no amount of comfort would ever fill the hole that was now in the Senju mother's heart. Looking at Naruto's still form, Pa could only sigh sadly and thought, "In peace children bury their parents. But in war, parents bury their children. Why must the young always pay for the mistakes of their elders?" thought the Sandaime angrily as he blamed himself for what happened to his surrogate grandson. "If I had not been such a blind sentimental old fool back then, none of this would have happened. It should have been me who had died here, not Naruto." "Naruto Dono," said the Katsuya clone who had remained on the Sandaime's shoulder while her original body returned home. "I am sorry Sarutobi," said Enma, who had returned to his originally form and stood next to his old friend. "He would have made a fine Hokage one day, worthy of his father and forefathers." Standing near Tsunade and the others stood Shizune, who had also broken into tears after seeing her godson surrogate little brother's body. Seeing this, Yamato went over her and placed a hand on her shoulder, where she then inexpertly turned and pushed herself onto the wood user chest, and continued to cry. Surprised and unsure of what to do, Yamato hesitantly brought his arm and gently patted her back, trying his best to comfort the grieving woman, who cried Naruto's name over and over, asking why. "Naruto," thought Kushina with a pained look, before lowering her head in shame and brought her hand over her chest, as she felt an sharp pain go through her heart at the loss of her first and only student. This was the same kind of pain she had felt when she returned to Konoha from a mission and learned that the Kyuubi had attacked, and that the Yondaime Hokage had died stopping it. It was the pain of regret and sorrow, since for a long time Kushina had blamed herself for what happened during the Kyuubi attack, believing if she had been in Konoha when the Kyuubi attacked, she could have stopped it using her special ability and her Fuinjutsu sealing techniques and thereby prevent Minato from sacrificing himself. But once again she had failed. She had failed in protecting her student, the son of her former love. A boy who had so much potential, and had so much to live for, had died tragically before his time, just like his father. At the same time, a mournful Kakashi looked down at Naruto with sad eyes. Like Kushina, seeing Naruto like this reminded him of the death of his sensei the Yondaime Hokage. It also reminded him of the pain he felt when he learned of the Yondaime's death. Just like the Yondaime Hokage Sama, Kakashi thought sadly, when he looked down at Naruto's body and saw a smile on his face. Seeing this, the famed Konoha nin could not help but blame himself for not stopping Naruto. "I'm sorry sensei, I failed to protect your son, your legacy." Standing near Kakashi were Asuma, Kurenai, Anko, Guy and the three Anbu, who like the copy nin, lowered their heads sadly at the young life that had ended far too soon. Standing among the Konoha shinobi, the Reikage, the Mizukage and the guards, stood silently as they watched Tsunade and the others mourn Naruto's death. Watching Tsunade cry over her son, the Godime Mizukage Mei could not help but be upset by what happened. Although she barely knew Naruto, she could not help it, given how he had protected her from Asuna shinobi's attack during the battle. Even the hardened Yondaime Reikage was somewhat saddened by the scene, although this removed a dangerous and potential threat to his village. The Reikage could not help but be slightly moved when he heard how the boy sacrificed himself to save his mother's life. Since if there was one thing I could respect and admire, it was courage and the willing to sacrificing yourself to save others. Standing next to their respected leaders, Zabuza and Killer Bee also showed signs of sorrow at the loss of Naruto, as both men had grown to like and respect the young blonde. Both men also wondered how each of them would break the news of Naruto's death to their teams. Zabuza of course knew Haku would take the news the worst, given how she had started to develop feeling for the young Senju. On his team, Killer Bee knew that Yugito and Omoi would take the loss of Naruto the hardest. Since Omoi and Naruto got on quite well with one another, while Yugito and Naruto had developed a strong rivalry and friendship. Sumui, he was unsure of since the blonde girl often kept things bottled up. He was also unsure of Karui, even though she and Naruto often fought, he knew she at least respected him. End Naruto OST Despair. As the group continued to mourn, slowly a certain spiky-haired blonde started to wake when he heard the sounds of crying. As he gradually opened his eyes, Naruto saw his mother kneeling next to him on his right, with both her hands covering her face as she cried, while Jiraiya held her close to him and had his eyes closed. He could also see the two elder toads standing next to Jiraiya with their heads lowered. To his left Naruto saw the Sandaime with his eyes closed and a pained expression on his face, while his summon Enma did his best to console him. As Naruto looked around he saw that no one had yet noticed he was awake, since they either had their head down and their eyes closed or were looking away. Knowing that he needed to say something to be noticed, Naruto turned to his mother and called out to her in a low croaking voice, as his throat was sore and dry. Seeing that no one had heard him, Naruto tried again, but a little louder this time. But once again no one heard him over Tsunade's crying, forcing him to cry out even louder and call her by something he would never call his mother. Hey, Ba-chan. After hearing this, Tsunade suddenly lowered her hands from her face and looked down at Naruto in disbelief, not believing whose voice she had heard. Even Jiraiya turned in shock when he heard Naruto call out Tsunade. Hey, Ka-chan, why are you all crying? You think I was dead or something? Said Naruto with a goofy-looking grin. NN Naru-chan, said a wide Tsunade, whose eyes were still red from crying so much. Hey, greeted Naruto with a goofy grin. Naru-chan, cried Tsunade before she grabbed hold of her son and pulled him to her and started to hug him as if her life depended on it and then started kissing him all over his face. After getting over his shock that Godson was still alive, Jiraiya immediately yelled, "Kid!" and joined Tsunade in hugging Naruto before he started messing up the blonde's hair, laughing and crying at the same time. He's alive! He's alive! Cried Tsunade, as tears once again fell from her eyes as she continued to hug her son. But this time her tears were of joy. At the same time a teary-eyed Shizune moved over and cried, "Naruto!" before she enveloped the blonde boy in a strong hug, squashing him between his mother and her, where both women started kissing him. But your wound how? Said Tsunade, since Naruto had no plus and had a bleeding wound through the heart. But now when she rubbed away the blood on the wound on his chest and when Shizune looked on the one on his back, where the sword went through, they were gone, completely healed. The Kyuubi. Jiraiya muttered quietly, since it was the only thing that made sense to him. Guess Hashirama Jisen was right, guess it wasn't my time, said Naruto with a weak smile. What do you mean Naru-chan? I met him, Hashirama Jisen, Tobirama Ujisen and the others. Not really understanding what her son was talking about, Tsunade simply smiled and kissed her son on the forehead and she hugged him and told him they would talk about it again. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Tsunade said over and over in her head as she looked up to the sky and smiled as she had never been so thankful in her entire life. She didn't care if it was the Kyuubi, her grandfather or Kami himself who gave her back her son, it didn't matter, the only thing that did was that she had her son again. At this point a beaming Sandaime moved around the two women so that he would be in front of Naruto and smiled down at the blonde. Hey, Gigi, you okay? Asked Naruto when he saw his surrogate grandfather, who had two small tears falling down his wrinkled face. Naruto my boy, I have never been better in my life, nor have I ever been so happy to see someone, replied the old man. Before he kneeled down and hugged the blonde boy and then moved back to look at him and smiled. Naruto, you are by far the most unpredictable young shinobi I have ever come across in my entire life. Naruto Dono, you do not know how happy it makes me to see you alive and well, said the small Katsuya clone on Sarutobi's shoulder. But how? The boy was dead, thought Enma as she tried to make sense of it all, before deciding to leave it be for now and let Sarutobi and the other enjoy the moment. Could Takubi be involved? Pa asked his wife quietly. I suppose, but does it really matter? Ma asked with a smile. I guess not, the old toad sage replied with a smirk. That idiot, making us worry like that, thought Kushina as she wiped away the tears from her eyes. Quote. Just for that I make him run training drills until his legs fall off, once he back on his feet though. Seeing Kushina whipping away her tears, Yamato moved over to his former captain and placed his arm on her shoulder and smiled. Shinobis are not permitted to cry, Kushina-senpai. Shut it, besides if you want to quote regulations perhaps you remind the Hokage-sama and the others. Replied the redhead as she indicated to the Sandaime and the others. I suppose we can ignore it this time, said the man with another smile before he looked over at his student who was being held tightly by his mother. You never cease to surprise me, Naruto, Kakashi thought with a smile, as he looked down at this student, part-time at least, and then let out a sigh of relief. Standing next to Kakashi, Asuma, Anko, Kureni, the Anbu and other Konoha shinobi who had gathered were all now smiling at the reunited family. Guy of course was the most vocal in his joy where shouted about how Naruto flames of youth were so strong that not even death could extinguish them. That kid, muttered Zabuza with a small smirk behind his mask and shook his head, at how the blonde literally came back from the dead. I thought his lights were out, but yo he's back, it's out of sight. Rhymed B is surprised before smiling. He certainly is an interesting shinobi, spoke the Mizukage as she turned to the Reikage with amused smile, as she was glad to see that Naruto was alive. Grunting in acknowledgement, the Reikage kept a blank expression, while he stared down at Naruto, where he could not help but wonder what sort of technique Naruto used to survive a stab to the heart. After a while Tsunade finally noticed how pale Naruto was and realized she needed to get him back to hospital to be treated for the loss of blood and any other injuries he may still. With no time to waste, the female Sannin took off, followed closely by Shizune and Jiraiya, while the Sandaime gave out others to the other Konoha nins. Once they had been given their order, the Sandaime turned to the Reikage and the Mizukage and asked them to come with him to his office to speak. After only 1 week after the invasion, the village of the Hidden Leaf was already on its way to recovery. Construction had already begun and the village of the Shinobi of the Leaf was busy with activity, with everyone, civilian and Shinobi alike, helping one another to rebuild their homes. The busiest part of the village was of course Konoha's hospital, which was filled with injured Shinobi. After the invasion, Konoha's medics worked tirelessly to treat all the wounded and save as many lives as possible. Among the injured shinobi was one Senju Naruto, who was currently still recovering from the invasion. Although thanks to the Kyuubi healing him, he had very few injuries left, he was left still very weak from the loss of blood and needed a transfusion. He also had to recover from the effects of the food pills, which left his body in a sorry state, where he could barely move a finger. Thankfully though, that was the worst of it, as the young Senju proved to be quite resilient and was slowly on the mend thanks to the efforts of his mother. After bringing Naruto to the hospital and treating him, Tsunade immediately took charge of the hospital and started organizing the medics and hospital staff in how they should treat the injured. Although every half hour the female Senju would go to her son's room to check on his vitals and make sure he was safe. Later on she even ordered a squad of Anbu to guard Naruto's room, telling them that no one was to be allowed in with the exception of the Hokage, Jiraiya, Shizune or herself. She even went on to threaten said Anbu with castration and disembowelment if so much as a hair on her son's head was harmed. Needless to say, Naruto's room became one of the most secured rooms in all of Konoha. A few days after they had driven the Oto and Suna forces out, word had reached Konoha that the Yondaime Kazekage was dead. According to the reports Konoha had received, when the Kazekage did not return from Konoha, Suna sent out teams to search for their leader, where they soon found his body, along with the bodies of his bodyguard. After examining the state of their bodies, it was learned that the Kazekage and his men had been dead for almost 2 months. This meant that the Kazekage had been dead before the Chunin exam had begun and that it had been a disguised Orochimaru who had been issuing orders. With their military forces weakened, the Jinchuriki captured and their leader dead along with their already weak economy. Suna quickly sued for peace, once they had realized they had been tricked and offered an official surrender to Konoha in the hope of avoiding a war they would surely lose. Wanting to avoid any further bloodshed, the Sandaime accepted the Hidden Sand's surrender, resulting in a truce between the two villages. He was also already in the process of negotiation with the village, with the chance of re-establishing an alliance with their former ally. This decision was of course met with heavy criticism from many people in the village and on the council, where many people felt that they should make Suna pay for their unprovoked attack. The most vocal of these was of course Danzo, who stated that despite being tricked, Suna still betrayed them willingly, hence could not be trusted. After much talk, the Sandaime was eventually able to cool most people's anger over Suna betrayal, stating that this was not the time for revenge, instead it was a time to rebuild and reorganize. He then went on to say that attacking Suna would not bring back those who had lost their lives in the attack and would only result in more being lost. Realizing that the Sandaime was right, most people calmed down, although many were still left bitter over what happened, especially those who had lost people they had cared about. At the same time, the Hokage was in the middle of talks with the Reikage and the Mizukage. After personally thanking both leaders for their assistance in repelling the invading force, the Hokage asked both cages to stay in the village, hoping to open better dialects with the two villages and avoid another incident like the invasion. Both cages accepted the Hokage's offer, although the Reikage mainly only accepted because two of his genin Kaori and Samui had received several serious injuries when they were defending the Lightning Daimyo and needed time to recover before they could move. During the talks, the Reikage personally apologized for two of his shinobi for trying to kidnap Hinata during the attack, who were stopped by the efforts of Neji and his team. The Reikage assured the Hokage that he would personally see to it that both men were severely punished, not only for acting without orders, or even approval, but also for abandoning their post, since they had been assigned to guard the Lightning Daimyo. After the Reikage apologized for his shinobi's action, the Mizukage questioned the Sandaime over how Naruto had survived his wound, which was clearly fatal. Knowing he couldn't reveal the truth about how Naruto really survived, the Sandaime told the two cages a half-lie by telling him about Tsunade's Sozo Saisei, explaining what it did, and how she had placed the yin seal on him when he was young. Naturally, after hearing about the jutsu, the two cages were shocked at the news that Tsunade created such an amazing technique, proving once again why she was hailed as the greatest medic in the world. When the Reikage asked why Tsunade had not done this sooner, the Sandaime explained that given Tsunade's emotional state over seeing her son stabbed, she was unable to think calmly or rationally. Thankfully, the two cages had accepted the story without question and then moved on to other issues, such as Orochimaru and his village, where after much discussion, the three shinobi agreed to work together and share information on dealing with the former Sannin and his village. Currently walking through a dark tunnel, Naruto slowly made his way over to the large cage that held the Kyuubi. After making his way over to the cage door, Naruto stopped once he was only a feet away from it. Shortly after, he saw the Kyuubi's eyes open up, revealing its glowing red eyes. "So you've returned," grunted the Kyuubi when he saw Naruto. "Huh, nice to see you too, furball," muttered Naruto as he stared at Giant Fox, who frowned at the name. "Why have you come here?" "I came here to say thanks." "Thanks," said the Kyuubi with a small measure of surprise, where his eyes widened ever so slightly. "Yay. From what my mom and the others told me, you forced your chakra into my body and used it to heal my injuries and then restart my heart." "Tisk, I only did it because if you died I would as well, and I am still unsure if I can reform myself after you die. Given how I lost half my power thanks to your wrenched father the Yondaime Hokage." "Yay, I figured as much, but I thought I would at least say it," said Naruto. "I do not want your thanks, but if you're as grateful as you say, then pull this seal off and release me from this cage." "Not a chance," said Naruto, where he narrowed his eyes. "I may be grateful for you saving me, but that doesn't mean I'm foolish enough to do that." "HMF, then what good is your gratitude?" grunted the Kyuubi. "You really are overgrown jerk, you know that," said Naruto, who got enough more annoyed when he saw the fox just scoff at his remark, not caring what Naruto thought of him. Having enough of the fox's attitude, Naruto turned around and began to walk away from cage, but just after walking a few feet away, he stopped and looked back at the fox. "You know something, Kyuubi, whether we like it or not, we're stuck with one another, so I suggest you learn to deflate that overgrown ego of yours a bit. Maybe then the two of us can come to an understanding." Quote. Scoffing at the idea, the Kyuubi just closed his eyes and told Naruto to leave him be. Having said his piece, Naruto turned back around and made his way back to the waking world. After Naruto left, the Kyuubi opened one of his eyes slightly and glanced where Naruto had just been a moment ago. Tisk. Gratitude from a human, how revolting, scoffed the fox before closing his eye again and going back to sleep. Outside the seal. After finishing talking to the Kyuubi, Naruto slowly opened his eyes. His body still ached from the after effects of taking 3 food piles in a row, where he still had trouble moving. Even now, he struggled to lift himself up on the bed, where he felt as if someone was on top of him, at least until he learned that there was someone on top of him. When the blonde boy opened his eyes, he saw one Hattori Mei leaning down and preparing to kiss him. Mei-chan, cried a startled Naruto, when he saw the Kunoichi on top of him. After hearing Naruto speak, the young Kunoichi stopped and opened her eyes. Oh good, you're awake, it wouldn't be any fun if you were asleep, said the young Kunoichi with predatory smile, which made the young blonde feel very nervous. WWH, what are doing here? Naruto asked in surprise. Can't a girl visit her injured fiancé when he is in the hospital, said Mai, where she sat back up, so that she was sitting on his lower end and flipped her ponytail up with her hand. Yes. No, I mean if Ka-chan finds out, she will, said Naruto before Mai placed her right index finger on his lips, stopping him from talking. Don't worry about that old hag, I've been monitoring her movements for the past 2 days. She comes here every half hour and just made her schedule visit 5 minutes ago, that means you and I have the next 25 minutes all to ourselves, giving us just enough time, said Mai as she unbuttoned the top button of his hospital pajamas. Enough time F for what? Naruto asked nervously, although he already had a fair idea what the girl was getting at. When she unbuttoned his second shirt button and saw a hunger look and smile on her face. How did you get by the Anbu that Ka-chan stationed around my room? Naruto asked quickly, hoping to distract the young girl with something else. Sadly though, the question did little to distract her, where she unbuttoned the third button, exposing Naruto's chest slightly. Oh Naruto-kun, now that would be telling, and a girl needs to keep a few secrets to herself, said Mai in a playful tone and smirk, before she let it down next to Naruto's right ear, where he could feel her hot breath against his neck, and whispered. But I'll tell you if you make it worth my while. After saying this, the young girl giggled a little and then started to nibble on his ear, causing the blonde boy to turn cheery red. Damn it, I can't move. I'm still too weak. A panicking Naruto thought, as he tried to think of something, but found it hard to focus, as Mai nibbled on his ear. After a minute though, Mai stopped nibbling on the blonde boy's ear and lifted herself back up, where she then placed her right index finger on Naruto's exposed chest and began to move it around. You know Naruto-kun, I'm rather angry at you, given how you nearly got yourself killed. If you had died, I would have been very upset with you. But given how you didn't, I'm willing to let it go, this time, but you are going to have to make it up to me. How? Oh, I think I can think of something, Mai said with a hungry grin. But before that, is it true what the rumors say, about you summoning the leaders of the Slug and Toad summons to defeat Sabaku no Gaara, Gaara of the Sand Waterfall, in his release form? Why yay, why? Oh just curious, replied Mai, who seemed pleased to know that the story was true, before she unfurled her ponytail, allowing her hair to fall down to her lower back. The Senju blood really does flow inside you Naruto-kun, said Mai as closed in her legs around Naruto's hips and placed both her hands on his exposé chest. Please share those wonderful genes with me. GG genes? Asked a now worried Naruto, who could see the hunger gleam in Mai's eye grow. If our two bloodlines were to come together, we can give birth to an unstoppable family of shinobi. Hold on Mai-chan, didn't you say you wanted to go on a date with me first? The nervous Naruto said quickly, hoping to stall the girl. True, but after hearing about everything you did in the invasion, I decided to skip to the main course. Since I find recklessness a real turn on. Turn on. A now crimson-red Naruto thought, not believing what he was hearing, where sudden inappropriate images began to appear inside his head. Yes, and we need to strike while the iron is hot, so let's start now, shall we? Said Mai, who then slowly leaned down to kiss Naruto, giving the blonde a more than generous view of her chest at the same time. See County, come on Mai-chan, you can stop joking now, said Naruto, as he started to sweat and think, I'm not ready yet. Oh, I'm very serious Naruto-kun, said Mai as she leaned closer. So please be gentle with me, it's my first time. I'm the one who should be saying that. screamed Naruto inside his head. But just as Mai and Naruto's lips were a hair's breadth apart, the door to Naruto's room suddenly opened, where a powerful killing intent coming from the doorway flooded the room, causing many of the plants in the room to wither and die from the sheer intensity of it. "What the hell do you think you're doing to my son?" roared a familiar female voice. Upon hearing the voice, the two teens immediately turned to the direction of the voice and saw a furious Tsunade standing in the doorway with flames of unholy rage burning around her form, giving her a demonic-looking appearance. "Ka-chan. Tisk. Damn that old bag," muttered Mai, and she pulled up from Naruto. "And I was so close." As Tsunade moved closer to them, the two teens noticed that the Slug Princess was not alone. Accompanying her was Jiraiya, the Hokage, the Raikage, the Mizukage, and the guards Darui and Ao. Seeing the two young teens in such suggestible manner, Mai with her hair down while she straddled Naruto, whose shirt was now opened, the Sandaime quickly turned away with a small blush on his old face. Jiraiya, on the other hand, just grinned at his godson and gave him 2 thumbs up, showing his approval, after which he took out his book and pen and started scribing on his notepad, as the scene had just given him a new idea for a new book. "Oh my, how daring," commented the now giggling Mizukage upon she saw the two, while the Raikage, Ao and Darui just stared at the two with their eyebrows raised. "I asked you a question," Tsunade said slowly as she glared at the granddaughter of Hanzo and started to crack her knuckles in a very dangerous manner. "What do you think you are doing to my son?" Unafraid of the female Sannin, Mai just smirked. "HMF, you're a medic, aren't you? Haven't you heard of C.P.R.?" saying the letters in a slow and very sultry manner, all the while smirking cheekily at the older woman. "Ah, so that is what the young people of today are calling it," mused the Sandaime while still fighting back a blush. "CPR. Oh man, I'm definitely using that line in my new book," Jiraiya thought as he frantically scribbled down what MIA had said. "This girl is gold." Looking down at his notes, Jiraiya began to write, "The attractive nurse lifted her short skimpy skirt over her patient, straddling the young spiky-haired blonde man between her long luscious legs. She then unfurled her long hair from hair bun, allowing it to fall all the way down to her perfectly shaped rear. She then unbuttoned the top 3 buttons from her uniform top, exposing her ample bosom slightly, allowing her patient to glimpse at her heavenly fruit. Once she was ready, she then ripped open her patient's shirt, exposing his naked chest, where she then leaned down and began to treat his wounds with her healing tongue. After treating his wounds, the young nurse then moved up and began to administer CPR. "Oh yes, this is brilliant. It will be my greatest book yet. I'll call it Ika Togi," make out nurse Jiraiya thought as he giggled quietly to himself. "I really need to hang out with the kid more, he's research gold." It was then, though, that the Toad Sage noticed that the raging flames around Tsunade had gotten even bigger, after hearing what Mai had said, and were now licking away at the ceiling. Feeling the heat of the flames, Jiraiya and the others slowly moved back from the Slug Princess, knowing what was to come next. "I've got to admit that girl has some pair on her to say that to Tsunade," Jiraiya thought as he glanced at Mai, who remarkably showed no sign of fear of the elder woman's growing anger. "And I don't just mean the pair on her chest. CPR, hey, Tsunade chuckled darkly, which started to make Jiraiya and the others even more nervous before a murderous gleam appeared in her eyes and she lunged forward at granddaughter of Hanzo like a wild beast, yelling, "I'll kill you. You little wench." Wasting no time, Mai quickly flipped into the air, avoiding the Senju matriarch lung, and landed on the other side of Naruto's bed, putting it between her and the furious Tsunade, who looked ready to tear the young girl apart. "It seems I've worn out my welcome here, Naruto-kun, and will have to return to my village. But we'll see each other very soon, and we'll finish where we started," said Mai before she gave Naruto a seductive smirk and wink and disappeared in puff of smoke. A split second later, a kunai flew through the space that Mai's head had just been occupying a moment ago, and went right through the widow that was behind her. "Damn it, I missed," Tsunade growled angrily before yelling, "I swear one of these days, I'll kill that little harlot." "Calm yourself please, Tsunade," spoke the Sandaime as he tried to calm his former student down. "How the hell am I supposed to stay calm after seeing that little harpy tried and take advantage of my son? And how the hell did she even get in here?" rounded the Slug Princess. "I think that's how," answered Sarutobi, pointing to an open air duct on the ceiling in the corner of the room. "Damn little bitch is craftier than I thought," grumbled Tsunade inside her head. "Where the hell are those Anbu? I'll have their hides." I think they skipped right after we realized that Hattori girl got by them, answered Jiraiya, who looked back out the doorway and saw that the Anbu were gone. He of course couldn't blame them for running, given what Tsunade swore she'd do to them if they let anyone by them. Growling in anger, Tsunade made a mental note to hunt down the masked shinobi and kick their asses. After a few minutes Tsunade eventually began to calm down, although continued to silently mutter about harpies trying to steal her baby boy from her. It seems you're well on the mend, Naruto-san, said the amused Mizukage, who was still smiling over what they had interrupted. Replied a blushing Naruto as quickly as he buttoned up his top. Oh, I got to get the kid to give me the details later, Jiraiya thought with a perverted grin, as he was so proud of his godson right now. Wanting to change the subject, Naruto quickly asked the Sandaime why they were all here. Welcoming the change of subject, the Sandaime quickly explained that tomorrow both the Mizukage and the Reikage would be leaving Konoha and returning to their respected village with their teams. But before leaving, the Mizukage had stated a desire to see how he was doing. I'm pleased that you are doing well, Naruto-san, said the Mizukage. Haku-chan was quite worried after learning you had been injured in the battle. Are Haku-chan and the others okay? Naruto asked. They're fine. They of course wanted to accompany us when they learned we were going to visit you. But Tsunade denied them, stating that she did not want to overwhelm you with so many visitors at once. But she did agree to allow them to visit later before we leave tomorrow. Nodding in understanding, Naruto continued to talk to the female cage. During the conversation, Naruto turned to the Reikage and asked if Yugito and the others were okay. The bulky cage answered that they were all fine and recovering from injuries and had even requested to visit him before they left. Thankfully, the Reikage remained ignorant over the fact that it was his brother and his team who drew them into the battle. Instead, he still believed that Orochimaru had been attempting to destroy Konoha and weaken both Kumo and Kiri with one move. This then resulted in the three villages agreeing to work together in hunting Orochimaru down. The Sandaime and the others had of course realized the truth themselves when they learned of the Reikage's reason for entering the battle on their side. Since they knew Orochimaru had only planned to destroy Konoha. Knowing that if they revealed the truth it would only get Killer Bee and his team in trouble, the Sandaime and his former students decided to remain silent. Since this way they would have several allies in their fight against Orochimaru, putting even more pressure on the former Sannin and his organization. Naturally, when the Reikage heard his brother request on letting his team visit Naruto, he became suspicious. But his adopted brother quickly explained that his team, particularly Yugito, had developed a friendly rivalry with the Senju heir and simply wanted to pay their respect. After hearing this, agreed to the visit, since he understood that even shinobi who were from rival villages could develop a healthy respect and rivalry with one another. He himself had one with Konoha's Yellow Flash Namikaze Minato, where despite being enemies, he greatly admired and respected the former Hokage for his speed and fighting skill. Soon after the two cages decided to leave, but before walking away, the Mizukage turned around. Oh, before I forget, I wanted to thank you properly for protecting me from that Suna shinobi's attack during the battle. Before Naruto could even tell the red-headed woman that he did not need her thanks. The female Mizukage leaned over to him and kissed the blonde boy on his left cheek, causing him to turn bright red, where it almost seemed like steam he would blow out from his ears at any moment. Naturally, after seeing this, the eyes of everyone in the room widened in shock. Tsunade even had to restrain herself from strangling the woman, since she was already in a bad mood over Mai. But even so, her irritation was obvious, given the large tick mark that appeared on her head after she saw the female cage kiss her son. Take care, Naruto-san, I'm certain we will meet each other again soon, said the Mizukage with a smile and waved before she leaving with a still stunned owl. Shortly after, the Reikage got over his surprise at what he had seen and bided the two Sannin and the Hokage goodbye and left with his bodyguard Darui. After the two cages left, the three Konoha shinobi turned to Naruto, who now had a dreamily look on his face and held the cheek the Mizukage kissed him on. Seeing this, Jiraiya just smirked and thought, older, good-looking and a powerful Kunoichi to boot, yep, the kid has definitely inherited his father's taste in women. Although at the same time the white-haired Sannin could not help but envy his godson luck when he was kissed by the red-headed beauty. Eventually though, Naruto was knocked out of his daydream by his mother, who was even more irritable now and slapped him in the back of his head to wake him up. Now that you've stopped daydreaming, you can tell us about that outer body experience you had. Rubbing his head, Naruto decided to accommodate his mother given the mood she was in. Naruto filled in his family how he met and talked to the Shodai and the others. Naturally, the three were skeptical with what Naruto told them, but after he described Tsunade's parents and Nawaki perfectly, they had no choice but to believe him, since Tsunade had never shown Naruto any pictures of her parents or brother. When Naruto mentioned what the Shodai had told him about the relationship between the Senju clan and the Uchiha clans, all three members were shocked. Given how they were completely unaware of any of this, Tsunade was of course the most shocked, since she had believed she knew everything about their clan history. They were further surprised to hear about what the Shodai had told him about a group of people who had helped the former Hokage learn to use and control his Mokuton bloodline limit. They were also curious about the prophecy mentioned by the Shodai which seemed to involve Naruto, which in turn remained Jiraiya about child of the prophecy, told to him by the great Toad Sage. This of course made the white-haired man wonder if the two prophecies were somehow linked to one another. After a while though, after much talk, they decided to leave the matter for now and let Naruto rest. Jiraiya although stated that he would talk to the Toad Sages about it and ask if they knew anything about the Valley of the Four Winds, given how none of them had even heard of the place. A few hours after the incident with Mai and the cages, Naruto was bombarded by a large group of visitors, which included the majority of the Konoha 9, exception of Sasuke, Sai along with Killer Bee, Zabuza and their teams. Accompany them as well were Yamato and Kushina who had been ordered by Tsunade to watch Naruto, given how the blonde's Anbu guard was still MIA. Naruto-kun, cried Ino, who was carrying get-well hamper filled with fruit, and quickly raced over to the blonde boy and hugged him tightly. I heard how you protected Sakura and me from Sabaku no Gaara, and then defeated him. As Ino continued to hug her spiky-haired hero tightly, several girls started to form large ticks on the heads over the scene. Ahem, coughed an irritated Yugito, gaining everyone's attention. If you don't mind, could you let go of Naruto, as you seem to be holding him too tightly. Looking up at the crush, Ino finally noticed the discomforted look Naruto had, and remembered that the blonde boy was still recovering from his battles. I'm sorry Naruto-kun, Ino said as she quickly got off the boy and placed the fruit basket on his beside cabinet. You tell her, kitten, don't give her a chance to sink her claws into your man. Cheered the Nibby. You will shut up, Nibby. How many times do I have to tell you that I don't think of Naruto that way? And how many times are you going to keep denying the truth that you have feelings for the boy? Asked the monster cat. Please, I could sense your irritation when you saw that girl hug him. Not to mention you called him Naruto-kun when you and those girls were fighting that other guy, and do I even have to bring up what happened between you and him at the end of your match? At the mention of the event between her and Naruto after their match, the blonde-haired Kanuhi blushed from embarrassment, which thankfully was not noticed by anyone. You know damn well how that happened, and if I could have moved back then, I would have killed him. Well, you didn't, and even though you won't admit it, even to yourself, I bet you enjoyed it a little, especially the part where he snuggled deeper into your chest and, said the Nibby before her voice was drowned out by the mental screams of a red-faced Yugito, who then pushed out the Nibby's conscience from her mind, not wanting to listen to her tenant's thoughts anymore. You okay, Yugito? You seem to be a bit red. Asked Karui, who noticed how red she was looking. I'm fine, Yugito replied quickly, I'm just a little warm, that's all. Hearing this, Karui just shrugged it off, although both Samui and Omo raised their eyebrows slightly, unsure whether to believe their teammate or not. Once Ino had got off him, Naruto quickly assured the blonde girl that he was fine, after which he then received several bunches of flowers from an embarrassed Sakura and Hinata. 4. This was followed up by several congratulations from the rest of Naruto friends, who were glad that the blonde friend was alive and well. After thanking the girls for the gifts, the blonde was soon bombarded with a dozen questions from his friends, asking him if he was alright and what happened in his fight with Gaara along with what happened inside the barrier. After assuring everyone that he was fine, Naruto proceeded to retell the story of his fight with Gaara, knowing that none of them would let up until they heard the story himself. For the next half hour, Naruto explained to them what happened in his battle with Gaara. When he had finished his story, his audience was left wide-eyed, especially after hearing how Naruto summoned both Katuya and Gamabunta. Some also even made a mental note to never piss Naruto off, given how badly the blonde beat Gaara. Others however wondered just how strong Naruto really was to do everything he did that day. Once he had finished telling what happened between him and Gaara, Naruto moved on to what happened inside the barrier. When the group heard about how Naruto was stabbed through the heart by Orochimaru's sword, they were of course shocked and asked the blonde how he was still alive. Naruto of course quickly used the cover story that his mother had told him to use, stating that at the last moment before he lost consciousness he used the Sozo Saisei to heal himself and explained to them how it worked. Thankfully the group accepted the story without question, especially after Naruto showed him the diamond-shaped seal on his forehead and explained how the jutsu worked. It was at this point though that Killer Bee revealed a large stereo that seemingly brought with him and stated that in celebration of Naruto's victory and revival, he had created a new rap for him. After hitting the play button, a steady rapping beat was heard from the large stereo, where Killer Bee began one of his stylish dances before he began to sing. Yo, say, ho, know my name, know my fame, don't be lame. 8 Tails, that's me, Da Rappin' Killer Bee. First all off, I'm here to say, one Senju Naruto is a badass dude. His Mokuton is a major component, right from the top, he's a worthy opponent, oh yay. This of course continued for several minutes, where for the majority of the time, most of the people in the room had large sweat drops on the back of their head as they watched the man dance and rhyme, badly. Naruto though like Kushina just laughed at Killer Bee's antics, while Omoi and Karui cheered their sensei on, at least until Yugito had enough of her sensei's idiocy and bashed him on the head and stopped the stereo, ending his rap. Covering the large bump on his head, Killer began to mumble about how a genius was never appreciated in his own time. Although then mention about maybe getting some TLC, tender loving care, from a certain female medic. Hearing this, Naruto suddenly remembered something, and called the rapping Kumo Nin over. Hey B-sensei, can you come over here, I want to tell you something. Sure, what's up little dude? Asked the dark-skinned man as he walked over Naruto, who then punched him right in the face with an chakra-enhanced punch, sending Killer Bee flying right through the room wall, and crashing into the outside wall. Stay away from my mother. Whoa, looks like the brat is recovering quicker than we thought, muttered an impressed Kushina as she peered out the new hole in the wall and saw Killer Bee lying on the floor. I told Char I'd reach time top, I'm already seeing stars, mumbled the male Jinchuriki before he blanked out. Seeing Yamato faced palmed himself knowing the trouble this would cause. Troublesome, muttered Shikamaru as he shook his head. Tisk, and he gives out about his mother being overprotective, he's as bad as her, Yugito thought as she shook her head in disbelief. Damn. Hey boy, remind me never to say anything bad about Naruto's mom in front of him, Kiba said quietly to his canine partner, who barked in reply, indicating he would. Seeing that everyone was now distracted with how Killer Bee was doing after Naruto sent him through the wall, Zabuza silently maneuvered himself next to Naruto, where he quickly gained the blonde's attention. Hey brat, said Zabuza in a low voice. Ha, what's wrong Zabuza? Replied Naruto. What are your feelings regarding Haku? Huh, you heard me, what are your feelings regarding Haku? She one of my closet friends and I care about her, if it wasn't for her, I probably would have been killed in the forest of death. Friends, huh? Why are you asking? Let me just give you a word of advice brat, said the demon of the hidden mist and he lowered his face to Naruto and looked directly into his eyes. Haku is a sweet and innocent kid, who despite having gone through so much shit in her life the past few years has maintained a kind and caring heart. So should you ever hurt in her in any way, I'll gut you like a fish and mount your head on my wall. Once Zabuza had finished, the Mist Swordsman began to leak out a small amount of killing intent, just to make his point clear, where for a moment Naruto was certain he saw the face of a demon appear behind the man. So do we understand each other brat? Zabuza asked, giving Naruto a deadly glare, causing the blonde boy to gulp in fear and sweat a little before quickly nodding. Good, replied Zabuza, before heard someone speaking to them. Is everything alright Naruto-kun, Zabuza-sama? Asked Haku, who was walked over to the two. Yay, everything is fine, I was just giving the kid some tips on how to improve on his Suten ninjutsu, isn't that right brat? Said Zabuza as he gave Naruto a dark-looking glance. Yes, that right, Naruto replied quickly, knowing that if he said otherwise, his life would be forfeited by the sword-wielding shinobi. I see, replied Haku, who seemed pleased that her master and Naruto were getting along. After a little more talking the large group slowly started to leave one by one, so to give Naruto rest more. Before leaving, Naruto called over Yugito, and handed her a scroll that he had gotten Shizune to pick up for him. He then told the blonde girl not to open it until she got back to Kumo. Now normally if a foreign shinobi told her to do that, Yugito would have given it straight back to the shinobi, believing it to be some kind of booby trap. But given how said shinobi was Naruto, she decided to trust him and promised him she wouldn't open until she arrived home. As Haku and her team were bidding their farewell to Naruto, the young ice user decided to do something very brash, knowing that it would probably be the last time she would see Naruto for a while. Moving over to Naruto, Haku whispered in Naruto's right ear and said, "I'm glad you're okay, Naruto-kun, please continue to stay safe." After which she then kissed Naruto on his cheek, before moving away from him. This action of course caused many of the boys, especially Naruto and some of the girls, to blush at Haku's action. Although at the same time, some of the girls glared angrily at Haku, who was blushing a bit as she quickly moved out of the room. But before she left, Yugito and some of the girls were certain they saw Haku smirk, as if gloating at her own personal victory over them. Seeing this, Yugito could not help but feel slightly jealous over what Haku did, even though she did not understand why she was feeling this way. At the same time, Kushina, who remained in the corner of the room with Yamato, smirked, knowing teasing material she had just gotten and would use on her student once he was fit for duty. As a blushing Naruto tried to sort out what had just happened, he noticed Zabuza glaring at him slightly, where before leaving the room after Haku. He brought up his right thumb up to his throat and slid it across the other end. Getting the meaning to what the mist swordsman was getting at, Naruto gulped again and thought. Why do I get the feeling that my life has suddenly just gotten a lot more complicated? Unknown location. Somewhere in a dark underground cave, two lone shadowy figures stood together, where the only sound that could be heard was the slow dripping of water falling from stalactites. After a few minutes, 7 more shadowy figures appeared, one after the other, where the only discernible feature that linked the 9 figures together were the red clouds on the black cloaks, indicating that they were members of the Akatsuki. The last time we all met like this was 7 years ago when Orochimaru left the organization, said one of the figures. So what's the occasion? An unforeseeable individual has appeared, one who could possibly interfere with our objective, answered the leader of the group. Who is it? Asked another member of the group, who was curious as to who could interfere with their plan. A young Konoha genin, Senju Naruto, replied the leader. Who? Asked a different member. Where the hell have you been staying? Under a rock, mocked one member. Taller members of the group. Senju Naruto is the son of Senju Tsunade. The entire shinobi world has been up in an uproar about him for the past 3 months. Fuck you, fish breath. Rounded the anger member. Maybe I'll offer you up to Jashin-sama as sacrifice to him, even though a blasphemer like you is unworthy of such an honor. Hey, you're welcome to try, zombie boy, the same member replied. Enough, spoke the leader loudly, causing the 2 members to halt their arguing. The boy is much more of a threat than any of you realize. How can a kid, let alone a mere genin, be a threat to our plan? Asked one of the shadowy figures. The boy is no ordinary genin given his heritage alone, said another member of the group who was clearly female given the sound of her voice. Not only does he possess the ability to use the same kind of superhuman strength his mother Tsunade-sama has, but he possesses an affinity for Suten that rivals even his ancestor the Nadaime Hokage. Naturally, many of the other members of the Akatsuki were surprised by this. But before any of them could comment, their leader spoke again. But the more important issue is that he possesses Mokuton, the same power of his ancestor the Shodai Hokage. That is why he is a threat to our plan. After hearing this, the eyes of nearly everyone in the group widened slightly in surprise. How is that possible? Mokuton is a mutation the Shodai Hokage-sama alone had. It is not a true bloodline limit, asked one of the Akatsuki members. It would seem that is no longer the case, although it should be noted that he is not the only person who possesses Mokuton. There is another in Konoha who is capable of using it, thanks to the experiments that were performed on him by Orochimaru, who attempted to recreate the Shodai Hokage-sama's power for himself. But from what we have learned, this person's powers pales in comparison to the Shodai Hokage-sama, therefore his threat level is not as great as the boy. Why that's? Asked one of the members. Given how Tsunade-sama's son inherited his Mokuton powers from birth, it would make sense that he would be able to use the ability better, since he had it naturally, replied the female member. Indeed, although it should be noted that the boy has already proven himself, where he fought and defeated two of our targets, added the Akatsuki leader. Who? Asked one member. The Jinchuriki of the Ichibi no Shukaku, one-tailed beast, Sababku no Gara, Gara of the Sand Waterfall, and the Jinchuriki of the Nibi no Bakenoko, two-tailed monster cat ni Yugito. After hearing this, the other Akatsuki members were once again surprised, although before any of them could comment, the Akatsuki leader turned to one of the members. Setsu, please tell the other the events that you witness. Nodding to this, Setsu then began to explain the events of the Chunin exam, as he had been ordered to sneak into the village and watch the event. After the Akatsuki learned that 3 of their targets would be all located in one place. His orders were to spy on the Chunin exam and gather data on the fighting abilities of the 3 Jinchuriki, as well as try and gather information on the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, whose identity still remained unknown to the Akatsuki. After Zetsu finished retelling Naruto's battles with Yugito and Naruto, many of the members were left rather impressed with the young Senju heir. "Woo, that kid is pretty good. He sounds like the Senju clan version of you, Itachi," said one of the Akatsuki members as he turned to the Uchiha and let out a low whistle, indicating that, like the others, he was impressed with Naruto's skill. The former Uchiha heir of course did not reply to his partner comment and remained silent. "Do you wish for one of us to eliminate the boy?" asked another member, who had a slightly hunched form. "No, instead I wish for him to be captured." "Huh, but why?" "Although the boy does pose a threat to our plan, at the same time he could prove to be a powerful asset in our goal in obtaining all 9 Jinchuriki, where with his help our task could be made much easier. He has also already proven that he is capable of suppressing the chakra of Biju." "That may be true, but from what Zetsu has told us, he is still a long way off from being able to be of any real use to us. He was barely able to suppress the Nibi's chakra, and that was only a portion of its power. Also, both Nibi and Shukaku are among the weakest of the Biju, and their Jinchuriki are among the youngest and most inexperienced of the 9 Jinchuriki. Unlike the more senior Jinchuriki, they cannot control or use their Biju full powers, and it is unlikely he could suppress a fully realized Jinchuriki like the Hachibi Jinchuriki," said the hunchback member. "Yay," said the hunchback member's partner, who only had one eye visible. "We don't need his help, we can capture the other Jinchuriki ourselves." "That may be true, but we are still several years away from moving forward with our plan, and given the boy's rapid progress already, there is little doubt that his strength would continue to grow, especially with the correct training. Not to mention capturing him could aid us in our quest to locate and capture the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, especially if what Zetsu has told me is true." "Then who will you send to capture the boy?" asked the hunchback member, while at the same time thinking. "Perhaps once we have finished with the boy, I can turn his body into a puppet, as a Mokuton using puppet would make a true work of art, a masterpiece that would last through the ages. I will send Itachi and Kisame to capture the Senju heir," the leader replied. "But why? They are the furthest away from Konoha, it would take them at least a month to get there. Hiden and I are nearer and could capture him. I also have previous experience fighting a Mokuton user, given how I fought the Shodai Hokage-sama," said one of the Akatsuki members, who was rather intrigued with meeting the heir of the founder of Konoha, not only because of his history with the former Senju leader, but also because he was certain that he could make a tidy profit out of the boy's corpse, once they were finished with him. Since he was certain many villages would pay a handsome price to have the body of a Mokuton user. "No, Kakazu, you and Hiden are more useful in gathering and collecting bounties for our organization. Also, this mission requires more stealth and finesses. If you two were to go, things would escalate into an all-out battle with Konoha, and we cannot afford to draw that much attention onto our organization yet. That is also why I will not send Sasori and Deidara. Itachi and Kisame are much more suited for this mission, where given Itachi's familiarity with Konoha's security and weaknesses, they can enter the village without alerting Konoha's forces and capture and leave with the boy before they are aware of what happened." Nodding in understanding, the group remained silent and listened to what else their leader had planned once they had captured Naruto. When he finished explaining the rest of his plan to the other members of the group, they slowly disappeared one by one, until only the leader and his partner were left. Once the others had gone, the leader and his partner turned to the dark corner of the cave. "Do you have any objections to what I have planned?" asked the leader as he looked towards the dark corner of the cave, and to the true leader of the Akatsuki, who remained hidden in the shadows. Like the other Akatsuki members' astro forms, the figure was cloaked in darkness, where all one could make out was the red clouds on his black cloak and a singular eye, which held the Sharingan. I have no objections, in fact I am rather interested in the boy myself and would like to meet the descendant of my old rival Hashirama, replied the dark figure. Also tell Itachi and kiss him to be cautious with him, the line of the Senju should never be underestimated. Understood, Madara-sama. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.